Today, the Below Average Joe's MMA show present the weekend recap. And everything we are talking today is all surrounding UFC 285,
Mm.
two massive title fights, some massive shakeups among the pound for pound best in the world, perhaps, in multiple divisions, new champions. So much to talk about, and I'm just ready to get right into it. I'm sure Dom is as well. All this and more, and it all starts right now. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this recap edition of the show. I'm Noah Baker, but I'm simply one half of
Mm.
this dynamic duo. The man to my right, the Stockton to my Malone. Oh, I wish I wouldn't have said that because a lot of Carl Malone not making great headlines.
No.
Let's try to Pippin to my
Pippen
Jordan.
Jordan. There we go.
Even though Michael Jordan's son's apparently clapping Scotty's ex-wife's cheeks,
Oh
but
boy, what an intro
we
we've got
really
here.
can't. I mean, these duos are just not. we, we,
Peanut butter jelly.
I want to say Kobe and Shaq, but they didn't like each other.
Yeah, no.
Is there any
Peanut butter
duos
jelly.
that did? Is this what's inevitably going to happen to us, Dom? Are we going to get to is this what happens to all great duos that they just end up hating each other and that's what ends up crashing and burning everything? Is that what the below average Joes as a whole is it doomed to fail?
I'm gonna say no.
Okay. I'm glad you did because I was on the fence.
Okay.
But
Okay.
no, I'm glad to be back here with Dominic. I'm, of course, recording from my mom's little studio here, or my mom, I don't know why I say studio, her office.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the white women decor
Right.
surrounding me right now. But good to be here. Good to visit some family. Got to watch UFC 285 alongside Dominic
Yes.
and the rest of the Battling for Bogey boys.
True.
We watched it at my future stepmother's house along with my dad and a couple of his friends. My sister and her boyfriend were there for a little bit. It was a good time. And Dominic, it was such a good time to me that and the fights themselves were so good as a whole, I thought that I'm going to make a pretty bold claim.
I've been waiting for it.
So, and I've said this multiple times, but I'm a bit of at this point, I don't know if I can really say I'm a newer fan, but UFC 199 was the very first event I watched live. Dominic coerced me into coming to his basement to watch, and I was hooked immediately, fell in
Mm-hmm.
love with it. I think Saturday night, when you take into account the way we were watching the fights together, had some of my family, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then you mix that in with how the fights delivered.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might have been my single favorite fight viewing experience live.
I like that, Noah. I do. It makes me happy to hear that, Noah. To be honest.
That might have been. I don't know. UFC 229 when Khabib fought Connor
Mm-hmm.
was a really good one too because we had a bunch of friends come up to our
Yep.
college town in Bowling Green, and we made kind of a weekend out of it, if I remember.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, that Friday was nuts. I mean, I
Yeah.
pissed my pants. Dom walks in from work, and the closet door is being used as a pong table. I mean,
Yeah. It was a mess.
but those two kind of stick out. But I
Mhm.
would look at this card from top to bottom. It's a little bit of recency bias, but I'd look at the fights from top to bottom as being better than what we got with UFC 229. So
Mm.
that's
Mm.
sort of where I'm sitting now. But because of that, obviously this card had a pretty big impact on me. And Dominic, I'm curious what kind of impact it had on you. I imagine on betting side, things went really well for you, and the fights themselves delivered. So how are you feeling?
Yeah, if we're gonna we got to bring the betting side into this as the third stage. This might be the best damn night of UFC ever. But no, man, seriously, it was an amazing night. I'm gonna say when the UFC has the big cards, it's one thing, the promotion and the big fight feel. But then when they can go out there, the UFC and of course, obviously the fighters are the ones in the cage putting it all out there on the line, and it just delivers from top to bottom. It hits different, man. And I'll tell you what, it seems like every big pay-per-view for the UFC leaves you feeling some type of way the next day.
Mhm.
There's hardly ever can I recall, especially over the course of this podcast, where they've done not just a pay-per-view, but a big one. And you know what I mean? Jon Jones, for instance, on this one, or DC versus Stipe in the trilogy. Like the big pay-per-views over the course of this show and over these past couple of years, the COVID era, have just felt even bigger the day after when you look at what has happened, the storylines to come out of the fights, the action that we got to see. And it's no different here. We are going to be covering this card top to bottom because there were performances and great just moments for fighters all the way from 5:30 p.m. until 12:30 a.m. midnight when Jon Jones got his hand raised, Noah. So I'm really looking forward to discuss. We got to talk about it live in person now. The fight hangovers calmed down. It's the evening, the following day. We get to really just discuss our thoughts with everybody here. I'm amped.
That's the big thing I've noticed in terms of what you're talking about. Like, just very rarely do you not have a large takeaway, at least one,
Yep.
from a big UFC pay-per-view. And that could not be truer in the way I feel afterwards. I wake up this morning in physical pain that not even 32 shots of Fireball could do to me.
Right.
Fight hangovers have been a constant since I've been watching live. It's
Yeah.
just a part of the sport.
Yeah.
It's the part of the sport of watching.
Yes.
However, knowing that you have to wake up and record a podcast, as much as we love it, it's like I kind of feel like I'm getting ready to walk into the octagon.
You got to gather your thoughts quickly. It's, the brain scrambled.
These fighters, like, they want to complain, they go in there for 15, 25
Right.
minutes, a couple times a year. I mean, we're doing this for an hour, 2 times a week, people.
Right.
Who's really putting in the work here? No, I'm just kidding. But excited to be here. Dominic, you know what it all starts with.
I mean,
just
this
put
headline
that
says
up.
it, huh? Yeah.
Put it
Yeah.
up.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing else that needs to be said there, but we will talk a little bit more about it. Jon Jones,
of course,
is your new heavyweight champion of the world, and he does it in quick fashion. 2 minutes, 4 seconds of the very first round. He submits Ciryl Gane, a man who had never been submitted in his professional MMA career. Most of this discussion is going to be centered around Jon Jones and his greatness.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually going to throw a curveball in here, and I actually want to start with Gane.
Okay.
So, Dominic, we talked a little bit about this on verbal sparring, what this conversation, depending on how the fight went, could potentially look like in terms of speaking about Ciryl Gane. We have both been very high on him for a long time. Even making such bold claims as he's maybe the future of the heavyweight division, the most talented heavyweight of all time, or the potential to be, however you want to word it. One of the questions that we had on verbal sparring was, who is the fighter you have been the most wrong about, whether it be they overexceeded your expectations or underperformed? Out of I want to take this as no. I hope this doesn't come off as disrespectful to Ciryl Gane. He's still a great talent, but can you say, sitting here now, after you've let it calm down a bit, would you put Ciryl Gane in the fighter you were most wrong about as you sit here today?
I want to no, I shouldn't even say that. I don't want to say yes. My mind wants me to say yes, I think, but I'm still going to say no. And Noah, this is why. And this is also going to tie into kind of what I said, because I almost backed myself into a corner on the preview show Friday. So just follow along with me here, and I'll tie these together to transition back. But I'm going to say no because look at the losses. It's Francis Ngannou in a fight that was really close. Obviously, the takedowns are what secured that fight for Francis. And I still, even after last night, just think Gane wasn't prepared for Francis to wrestle him. Then last night happens. It's the greatest fighter of all time that he loses to. So I'm going to cut a little slack for the Frenchman for now. So I'm going to say no for now. However, again, tying into what I said Friday, I said, and it's on the record, and that's why I'm being transparent here and bringing it up, that if he were to get starched and ran through by Jon Jones, I would no longer view Ciryl Gane as that elite, like next level type
Mhm.
heavyweight, right? And of course, what happens? He gets ran through, guys. The only strike that landed that was significant was an illegal strike to the balls of Jon Jones in that fight. That's it.
Some are
So,
saying the biggest strike of the contest.
yeah, and I remember I rode home with Branson, so I remember looking at him and I go, Branson, I said all this about Ciryl on Friday, and now here I am wanting to retract it because Jon Jones is just so good. I think he might run through everybody in the
Mhm.
heavyweight division like he
Well,
just
that's
did Gane
fair.
last
No,
night.
you're allowed to go back on that take. You just
So I'm gonna leave it out there, but I'm just gonna come back on it a little. I'm gonna retract
mm,
just a little. I still view him as a great talent, but definitely still, regardless of who he lost to, being it was Jon Jones though last night, I'll come down. I'll come down on it. He's no longer that phenom, next level, elite, never before seen heavyweight. I will say that he no longer is that to me, but he is still a very high tier, high quality heavyweight. So hopefully that's not too, soft on my side, but it's just it,
mm,
it all comes back to me with the greatness of Jon Jones. But before
mm.
we get into that, here we go. You answer your part of the question from verbal sparring as well.
So surprisingly, I'm actually going to say no as well. I think
Okay.
you might have thought I was going to say yes just because I brought it up. And considering on that episode of Verbal Sparring, which you can go watch right now or
Of
after this
course.
episode's over,
Right.
But um I think I said, like, if what your scenario you had presented and ended up kind of playing out happened, that I
Yeah.
probably would lean that way. But I've been pretty wrong about some guys, especially in the reverse end. Like we talked about Cody Garbrandt a little bit, who we'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about later. Um, you could look at guys like Mickey Gall, I was pretty high
Mm-hmm.
on, and that didn't obviously work out. And there's a lot of guys, right? So I'm not going to go that far because Dominic, you're right. I think the resume
Yeah.
needs to kind of speak for itself here. And and a wise man once said, "Judge me by my losses, not by my wins." Do you know who that wise man was, Dom?
You're gonna have to enlighten me with the quick pop quiz
That
there.
was, that was Jake Paul after he
Okay.
lost to Tommy Fury.
I didn't know what I was
Um,
thinking, but I didn't think that.
but in all seriousness, losing to two of the best heavyweights to ever do it. Well, one of the best. I mean, Jon Jones looked incredible, but
Yeah.
it was one fight, right? So it's like, you know, we'll see. But one of the best fighter of all time,
And one of the best heavyweights. There
yeah,
you go.
Francis Ngannou, one of the
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
scariest heavyweights of all time. And in a way, you could kind of look at it as somewhat of a compliment that Gane had forced the scariest power puncher
Yeah.
in MMA history to resort to wrestling to get the win.
Gane was winning on the feet in that fight.
And so, but if you look at Gane's wins, who's his top 4 wins? You got Biggie Boy Rosenstruik,
Mm-hmm.
Alexander Volkov,
Mm-hmm.
Derek Lewis for the interim title, who he finished,
Right.
and Tai Tuivasa, who he finished in the main event in Paris. Most of those fights were not particularly close.
Right.
Even the Tuivasa one, which I know we kind of disagreed on, but
Mm-hmm.
truthfully, it was mostly a
Right.
dominant showing outside of the fact that Tuivasa,
Of course.
dropped him, had him
Yeah.
on the ropes for a minute there. So I still think Gane's an elite heavyweight. Was I wrong about saying he's the most complete heavyweight we maybe have ever seen? Yes. So
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the problem, Dom. He is an elite heavyweight, an elite skill set in terms of his striking, but his holes are pretty gaping.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what was exposed even more so Saturday. Now, how many guys are going to be able to do to him what Ngannou kind of did or what Jones just
Yeah.
did? I mean, Curtis Blades might,
Right. Right.
but you go beyond that, who's really
Not
going to do
many.
that to him?
Right.
Is Pavlovich going to do that to him?
Not the way he's
I mean,
been fighting.
Yeah, I didn't think Ngannou would, but you
Yeah.
never know. Tuivasa obviously didn't do that to him. You go down, he's beat some of these guys who would come up next.
Yeah. For sure.
So I think Gane is going to be in the contender picture for a long time.
I agree.
Depending on how long he wants to fight, and assuming he doesn't, regress,
Mm-hmm.
crazy amount. He's 32, right? So
Yep.
he's still got at least, at heavyweight, they last a little longer usually with their years, and he doesn't have like a ton of professional MMA experience. So it's not
Yeah.
like the fight years
Right.
would be weighing him down. But that striking skill set is advanced at heavyweight. So many heavyweights have really big power, but their actual technical boxing or kickboxing is not.
There's only a few. Yeah.
Yeah, look at like Tuivasa or Derek Lewis. Like these guys are great, fought
Yeah.
for titles or at least came close to it. But really, they're not like technical boxers or technical
Right.
strikers. They have crazy power, great timing, all that. But
Mhm.
that's just how heavyweight is. Ciryl Gane is advanced in that level.
Oh, undoubtedly. Yeah.
It's just that I just don't think he is as complete of a mixed martial artist as I once believed. I think I was I mean, you could probably, tell me if you feel differently, but I was probably convinced that he was based off of some anomalies, getting like the submission win on Dante Mays.
Well, I think that's
You
the
know?
thing, right? We saw the success offensively, never had to even sweat him on the defensive side. So you just assume, like, oh, well, he's probably pretty good on the ground. We just don't really see him, have to play defense on that side of things. Then you've seen it in 2 of his last 3 fights that there is a pretty clear hole. And what did Jon Jones say all week? There's a clear hole, there's clear gaps, there's clear weaknesses. He went in and did everything he said he was going to do with those weaknesses. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to transition. I don't know if we really need to match make for Gane. He's going to be getting a
I think
pretty
it's hard
big fight
right now.
Does he fight the loser, Blades Pavlovich? I think that's probably a pretty good option, but, we'll see.
Yeah.
But whoever it is, it'll probably be in a fight night headliner or pretty big on a main card. He's not going away.
No.
And now we'll transition into the conversation about Jon Jones, who greatest of all time. I mean, this was a hard one for Dominic to say because he not only due to the resume, of course, of Anderson Silva, which I think stands on his own as that minimum top 3 of all time, but also your personal love for Anderson Silva, has obviously carried that as well some. You even said it last night, like without a doubt. Even though I don't think you were necessarily denying it before, but I think
I didn't want to let go of Anderson.
For more people out there, it seemed like it was somewhere holding on to GSP.
Yeah, true.
And a lot of it, and some people may still feel that way because of the whole PED argument. And I'm not going to tell anybody they're wrong. But in terms of the best fighter I've ever seen in MMA, you cannot deny it's not Jon Jones. If you want to disqualify him, that's fine. But he is the best mixed martial artist of all time. And I mean, that's what everybody's going to say on these podcasts. I won't harp on just saying that over and over again. He called a shot here, Dom. Some of us wondered if maybe he was being a little bit too confident, overlooking some of the talent Gane obviously had in the standing department. Jon Jones, 3-year layoff, first fight at heavyweight. Some were looking at his physique on fight week and saying, "Ooh,
I didn't like
chubby,"
those."
which I never really bought into that. Maybe it's because I'm just fat myself, and I was just like happy to see a guy like him, just doing it like one of us. Or maybe I was thinking, wait, I could be Jon Jones if I just cut down to 205.
There you go.
But my question for you, I guess, to start this may come to you as like a very softball, like easy question to answer, but I just want you to think about it.
Okay.
Did Jon Jones answer every question we had going in about how he would transition to heavyweight?
Okay. Well, Friday, one of the bigger, we talked about a lot of questions and storylines.
There's a lot. Some of them we didn't even talk about, probably.
Right. One of the main ones was, have we already seen the best of him? Gonna say no. Gonna say no to that. I can for sure check that one off because you look at what he did last night and then you look at those last couple performances at light heavyweight. He said it was a lack of motivation, wasn't excited for the fights. He was fighting not to lose rather than fighting to win. That's exactly the narrative. That's exactly based off of what I saw last night in 2 minutes. That's that answer. What are some of the, I mean, how would he fill out with the weight? How would his strength carry over? What is grappling work here against a guy that he's never fought this big?
Would he have ring rust?
Would he have ring rust? Absolutely. I mean, absolutely not. To every one of those other questions. Is there a box I'm trying to think of? I can't think of any
Yeah.
questions that he didn't answer last night. And it's sickening to say that. No, we didn't get to see much. I remember looking at you, the fight ended. I'm like, huh? What happened?
We were
The
shocked.
fight's over in 2 minutes.
Nobody could tell that choke was in. It seemed like he almost just tapped, like he was just like, well, I'm in a
And
bad
that was
position
enough
here.
for me to say all I'm saying right now on today's show. Yep.
No.
Checked all the boxes,
Mm.
answered all my questions. Yeah, he did. The fact, and he's only 35 still, man.
Mm.
And have you been seeing all the stuff on Twitter today? This is Sunday when we're recording this. That aftermath day, everybody's going crazy on Twitter. You know how it is the day after pay-per-views. And I'm seeing pictures of 2011, Jon Jones winning the title for the first time. I'm thinking in 2011, 12 years ago, I was 11, 12 years old. Now I'm 24, going on 25 next month, watching Jon Jones come back after a layoff and win another title. He's been winning championships for 12 years. He's been winning nothing but championships, Noah. That's greatness. That is greatness that we've never seen in this sport and probably never going to see again.
I can't get the quote down word for word, but I listened to Dana White's post-fight press conference this morning, and they were asking him, of course, about some of Jon Jones' transgressions out of the octagon and for him to come back from them and all this stuff. He said something like, that many men or women fighters who rode the straight and narrow never took their focus off of preparing for the next fight, off of preparing for their next opponent, who did everything right, the right way, will never accomplish half of what Jon Jones did, despite having one of the most chaotic careers in and out of the octagon you can have. That's greatness.
Yeah.
You don't have to like the guy. Actually, I think that's a fair thing. Obviously, we don't know him, but you know, based off of some of the things he's been accused of or been convicted of, you know, questionable character to be nice, and that's fine. But in terms of when you view the sport of MMA, he is the best example. When you watch someone in the octagon, there is no better example of greatness in this sport. He is Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
He is, I mean, who do you want to say for like baseball? Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
He's Tom Brady. He's
right.
That is who he is for our sport. And you don't have to like that, but we have to accept that that's who he is.
Yeah.
And despite that, to answer the question I gave you, I think he answered the biggest questions for sure. I mean, the big question marks, how would he look against a heavyweight opponent? How would his strength hold up against Gane, who's not a weakling?
No, not at all.
Pretty strong guy.
Yeah.
How would his grappling hold up? Held up pretty well.
Yeah.
Would there be any ring rust? Nope.
Nope.
But I do think there could be some questions still going forward. And I think that's what makes it so exciting as we look ahead to his next fight, which looks like it'll be against the heavyweight GOAT, Stipe Miocic, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But, you know, we didn't see really how his speed adjusted to heavyweight in terms of, like, the striking. I think he did a great job of, you know, taking him down, getting control right away. His strength looked great, like in top position.
Yeah.
And of course, to be able to kind of, I mean, Dana described it like he made Gane look kind of like a baby, like he was like ragdolling him around. And that was basically what we saw.
Yeah.
But we really didn't see anything in the striking. And that's not a knock on him. It was such a dominant performance that it's hard to answer those questions. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to doubt the guy. I bet on him because I said I can handle being a guy who bet on the best of all time, who's undefeated. Well, technically undefeated. To lose his first fight, I can stomach that. I can't stomach betting against the best to ever do it and him go out there and do GOAT shit, which is what he did. But there are going to be some very interesting questions that pop up for that next fight. And it's not just him either. Stipe's going to have to answer some of those questions. So,
yeah,
I do think it was just worth bringing up. It's not a knock on his performance. You can't knock that performance.
No.
But, Dom, it's somewhat of a prolonged version of like Conor McGregor knocking out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
many question marks about if Conor could really do it at that time.
Yeah.
He does it, but it was so quick
So fast. Yeah.
that you had everybody probably still had some questions.
Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
ran that back, what would happen?
Right.
How's he going to do trying to make title defenses? Well, I mean, his career went pew, so we never
Yeah.
really got a
Yeah.
lot of answers to those questions, but that's what you had to take away at the time. It is the kind of performance, it's legacy defining in some ways. But yeah, do you kind of agree with that? Like in terms of what we saw, that there are still questions, but
They're new
that's not a knock on
questions.
the performance. Yeah, they're the
Yeah.
questions that were a little lower
Yeah.
on the totem
Now
pole have
they're
now been shot up to the top.
right. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it actually bodes well with what I want to bring up here. He said this. Now, I didn't get to see his actual post-fight press conference, but he did the quick hitter post-fight interview on ESPN with John Anik and I always blank on the guy's name from Sports Center, but he did that for Sports Center after the
What was it,
fights
like
last night.
Max Kellerman or something?
No, I can't remember his name.
All right,
I'll find
continue.
it.
I
But
won't hold you up.
he said that going into the Stipe fight, he had a great quote, by the way, about the Stipe thing, how he's wanted this fight forever, a GOAT versus a GOAT. It's going to be big. I think it could have been bigger at one point, but it's still pretty massive now, especially that John's the champion. So the fight's huge. But he said, not nonchalantly, but just quickly, and then they kind of kept talking about the fight, and I'm like, that's interesting. He said, I'm looking forward to, cutting down, getting a little bit leaner for the Stipe fight, losing a little weight, coming in a little cleaner with the physique and whatnot. And I thought, okay, interesting. Stipe mentioned to Megan O'Leary last night in a quick hitter after the event. They took his ass so fast backstage, by the way, after that main event, and it was crazy. That dude had to be huffing and puffing talking to Megan.
He teleported.
Yeah, it was crazy. They put him on a golf cart or something. But he said he weighed 253 pounds. That's the biggest Stipe's ever weighed. As far as my memory serves me, which would weigh more than both Gane and Jones last night. So that's I think that adds some things because Stipe's always been pretty quick in terms of the boxing anyway. Not like footwork like Gane, but quick hands, good boxer. So with him putting on more size, how's he going to look? For Jon, I think it's really something to consider here. If he looked like his physique was fine, a little chub, what's it matter? Did you see the muscle on the guy? I mean, he's physically insanely strong. So the fact that he wants to come in leaner to have a bit more speed for a guy like Stipe, I think kind of ties hand in hand with that question that you just brought up. So did you hear about that? What are your kind of thoughts on that if you hadn't heard it yet? And I think that just morphs well with what you just brought up, to be quite frank.
Well, I hadn't heard it, but my immediate thought was that I think that's a smart idea. And it's not because of any which way he looked here, but consider the matchup.
Yeah.
He came in heavier because in a lot of ways you probably knew that his advantage was going to be to take this fight with Gane to the ground in the wrestling. Yep. So being heavier than him would help in holding that top position, getting control time. It was so quick. I mean, some of that stuff didn't even end up being in question. With Stipe, this fight could be fought primarily on the feet. Stipe's got great wrestling himself.
Yes, for sure.
Now, we've seen Stipe, Daniel Cormier took him down maybe once in their third fight. Yeah. And I think Stipe was able to either get back up or I don't remember exactly how that went. But Stipe is a guy who we've not seen, off his back at all through his UFC career, which is an interesting dynamic in of itself because we just saw with Ciryl Gane in a different set of circumstances. A guy who had shown a lot of promise in terms of his submission capabilities with leg locks and maybe with his offensive wrestling looking pretty good. And then he gets put on his back and he looks almost kind of lost out there. I don't expect Stipe to look like that. I think there's a reason why the man's never or rarely been put on his back. But I wonder if Jones looks at it like if I can get leaner, build up some of that speed.
Yeah.
If I can simply be faster with the footwork, faster with the hands, stay on the outside and pick Stipe apart with his shots. And that's an interesting kind of style fight right there because Stipe is known for his boxing. So, now we're kind of talking about the Stipe fight, and I think that's fair to transition into. You guys know that's really all that's left to be said about the Stipe fight or the Jones Gane
Right.
fight. Like so quick. I mean, we
Yeah.
spent more time talking about it than the fight actually took place.
Yeah.
Um, so Stipe has been confirmed to be the next matchup. They don't know, they're not confirming when it's going to be. All signs seem to point to
The big one.
International Fight Week in
Yeah.
July. They're
Yeah.
going to be massive in Las Vegas if that is the fight. How do you feel about Dominic? Because you obviously, if people are unaware, maybe newer fans to this channel, me and Dominic are two of the bigger Stipe fans you will find. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice, nice.
Yeah.
We are from Ohio,
Yeah.
so we tend to feel that way about Ohio fighters, and Stipe was our guy.
Yeah.
From when I first started watching, and Dominic at that time kind of getting us into it. Then we went and saw him defend against Overeem in Cleveland. How are you feeling about that fight right now?
Well, my immediate reaction, and I think it's pretty fair, regardless of my fandom for Stipe, is yikes. And I'm saying that as nicely as I can because regardless if Stipe was next, if Sergey Pavlovich was next, if my boy Tom Aspinall was next, I'd be saying the same thing. Yikes. This is a scary, scary man to have as the champion right now, man. I mean, 35 years old, still has plenty of fight years left. And Jon Jones becoming the champ now, newly, reinvented himself. This is only his first fight back, and he looked that good. You got to think he's only going to look better in his second fight, right?
That's
Is
true.
that fair to at least assume for now? So, I don't know. It's definitely an interesting match. I remember we've talked about this potential fight for really since the beginning of the podcast because that's when DC and Stipe were kind of at the heat of their rivalry, finishing that rivalry off.
Mm-hmm.
So this has always been a topic of discussion, here and there from 2020, 2021, for 3 years now, and now we're finally going to get it in 4 months time, and that's just it's crazy. It's huge. It doesn't get much bigger than this. But going into any fight moving forward, until proven otherwise, I have to lean the side of Jon Jones. And it's greatness, man. Again, it's just history. You don't get to see stuff like this much. It's going to be a big one, though, man. He's right. I mean, this is the greatest of all time, pound for pound, weight class wise, versus the greatest heavyweight of all time. And I think there is something to be said there. If Stipe, because how many times have we said this? It just feels like with the way Stipe's been going, he's been out for what'll be 30 months, give or take, by the time July rolls around. His legacy has already been cemented. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, any other wins are just cherries on top. But a win over Jon Jones, that's a little bit more than just a cherry on top, man. And for Jon, if he can beat Stipe, it's almost just like he can't get any better now. He's just putting himself higher and higher above all those, the GSPs, the Silvas, the Mighty Mouses. He's just putting himself way ahead of them. That's what this fight is. So, I mean, belt on the line, that's cool and all, but legacy wise, this is huge. I say all that about Stipe's legacy being cemented, but if he goes in here and beats Jon Jones, it ain't cemented. They're going to have to pour some new pavement if he beats Jon Jones. I'll put it that way. It's sick, man. It's awesome.
Yeah. Gosh, like you're bringing up really good points there about if Stipe beats Jon Jones, all of a sudden the conversation sort of changes a little bit. I don't know if you can say Jones or Stipe is like the best ever, but all of a sudden, I mean, you got to
he throws himself into the list.
Yeah, like in our personal opinion, he's top 10 all time, and I hope most people might agree with that. But if he were to beat Jones, he's probably shooting up. I mean, we're talking Anderson Silva, GSP, Jon Jones territory.
Yeah.
I mean, in all honesty, especially to do that at heavyweight, which has been a division with so much turnover at the top and in the championship position, to be that constant.
Yeah.
And
he'll be what, 40, 41 years old too? Like,
oh my gosh, is that the case? That's crazy.
Yeah.
I worry about it though for our boy Stipe.
I think you have to.
Well, I worried about it when we talked about it in 2020. I always thought the idea of those two fighting, I always sort of favored Jones in that matchup. And now that we haven't seen Stipe since March of 2021.
And you've seen Jon at heavyweight now.
Yeah, we just saw Jones at heavyweight. Like, this time off for Stipe, can you really say it's a good thing for him to be gone this long? I mean, it's kind of weird because we're just talking about a guy who just took a 3-year layoff and came back
Yeah,
looking as
you're right.
good, if not better, than he was in his last few fights. But I don't know if I see that same trajectory potentially for Stipe.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm not saying he can't win the fight. He
Mhm.
is. I mean, I was breaking down the matchup to you, and it was kind of convincing me in my own head his chances being better than like what Gane showed here.
Yeah.
But potentially, I mean, this is a guy who has, his vulnerabilities have been exposed before in terms of, he did get knocked out by DC with a short punch in the clinch. And you looked, I mean, obviously Ngannou sent him to
Yeah,
the
that
shadow realm. That was not fun.
yeah.
Um, I don't know if Jones can do that or not on the feet, but it that creates just a great dynamic for another super intriguing fight. But even if you just take the matchup out of it, Stipe just at this point in his career, is the fire really still there?
He presents it as it is, but I think it's a different thing
Really? Because
what we get in the
maybe
cage.
he says it, but when I see him like speaking to Megan O'Leary last night when they teleported him
Yeah.
backstage,
Yeah.
I didn't see him speaking like a guy who was. I mean, he's
Yeah.
always kind of talked. He's never
I
really
think
talked the
that's the
talk like that.
yeah, yeah.
But I guess maybe I just want a little more fire for what could
Yeah.
potentially be
That's
the
fair.
biggest fight of your career and your last fight of your career.
Yeah.
But I'm sure priorities have changed for Stipe. He's a
Yeah.
full-time firefighter. He's got his family, his kid, he's got his grill.
Yeah, of course.
You know, fighting's not really a large part of his life probably anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But again, that just leads me to be even more concerned about it because Jones has had his eyes on this fight forever. When the
Yeah.
guy who is the more technically more accomplished fighter, and right now I would say the better fighter, seems hungrier,
Hmm.
that's a little cause for concern.
John said something like that last night as well in that same little interview that I was
Oh,
referencing earlier. When he was talking about the quick little, I'm gonna get leaner, yada yada yada. They talked about the Stipe fight, and he gave him all the praise. Right, goat versus goat. I've been
mhm.
wanting this. I'm ready for this. Showed his respect, and stuff. But then again, in the most Jon Jones way, again, guys, he's top 3 shit talker of all time. I'm gonna go out and say that one on today's show. He may do it differently than Connor, but the way in
Yeah.
which he does it is quite methodical.
So subtle, but it just
Yes. Yeah.
pierces you.
All their jabs. And so last night he goes, Stipe, I respect you. I think you're a great human, a great American, the firefighting, the family man. He said, if I'm you, I'm taking some time away from the fire trucks, the fire station, because if you're not 100% focused on me, I'll essentially run through you. I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, my sole focus in my life is beating you, and I'm not going to beat Stipe Miocic. I will finish Stipe Miocic. That's all paraphrasing, but that's a large part what he said. And he said that, man, and that relates again to what you just said with, is that fire there for Stipe? Is he hungry enough to take on a rejuvenated lion in Jon Jones? We'll see. We'll see. I'm a little scared to
We
see,
will.
but
Yeah.
but
No, we definitely will see. And with that, Dominic, I think we can transition into our co-main event.
please.
This is the second time we've had this headline title here. Dominic, the third, whatever you want to call it, the third leg of this
Yeah, the
Mexican MMA
parlay.
takeover
Yeah,
parlay
yeah,
has
yeah,
hit. Some may say the biggest underdog to do it of all of them.
yeah.
Um, it's still unclear if Aldana's actually going to be fighting Amanda Nunes. So
Right.
even if she doesn't, Dominic,
I feel
we
like
have
now you
three.
got to though.
But yeah,
But
but
yeah,
now you have 3 Mexican champions. And
yeah,
yes, we're counting Yair with that interim title. He's going to
yeah,
be the next guy to fight Alexander Volkanovski, and I cannot wait
yeah,
to see that fight.
yeah.
But Alexa Grasso,
I'm
round
getting chills.
4, 4 minutes, 34 seconds, submits, finishes Valentina Shevchenko. Give it a second.
Mhm. Okay.
What a crazy year and some change it's been for dominant champions. I mean,
No
God
kidding.
forbid being a dominant champion in 2022, 2023.
Yeah. Yeah, in the end of
I mean,
2021.
yeah, I mean
You
that's
brought
got to
that
be
up
just
last night.
yeah, that's got to be just terrifying. I mean,
Yeah,
Alexander Volkanovski's got to be shitting his britches right now. That
yeah.
what's gonna happen? But um, Dominic, I mean, I want to kind of give you a question here to kind of start us off.
What do you even ask?
What do I ask?
I'll tell
Alexa
you this.
Grasso.
How
Go ahead.
good, how fucking good did Alexa Grasso look in that fight last night?
She
That's
looked
my
incredible.
question to
She
you.
looked incredible, and she wasn't even winning the fight.
Yeah.
She finished an exceptional Valentina Shevchenko here.
Yes. Yes, she
I
did.
thought Valentina Shevchenko looked much better than she did against Tyler Santos.
Yep.
I thought she looked better than she had in certainly some of her other defenses.
I think better than the Maya fight she looked last night.
Yeah, no, 100%. Alexa Grasso, the thing is, yes, she got the submission win, Dom. But if you actually watch the fight, you'll see Alexa Grasso outstruck Valentina Shevchenko.
Yes. Valentina won 2 rounds due to top control.
Due to top
Not the
control, was able
striking.
to get takedowns at will and had the strength advantage in here.
Yeah.
But Alexa had more pop on her punches. I don't know what the stats would say, but she felt more accurate on her punches.
Yep.
She was
Yeah, for
more
sure.
active in terms of she was
Yep.
throwing more. So
Yep.
even if her accuracy was lower, she was constantly throwing something, whether it was a feint or something that she kind of wasn't going to hit, but she was just kept throwing. Didn't tire out. She needed an opening. And Valentina, a fighter who has so rarely made a mistake, throws that spinning attack, misses, leaves her back open, and within a split second, Grasso pounces on her back.
Right
is
into
able to
it.
choke her out
Yeah.
with less than 30 seconds left in the round. Dominic, like I'm still like kind of overcome by this, and I'll tell you guys why. The bet slip may not show it,
Unfortunately.
but round 2 comes, and Alexa Grasso just won the round, and it was probably a couple minutes in the round 2, to be fair. And Valentina looked like she was kind of controlling the second round, looking pretty good. Might have even had the takedown at that point. And the live odds pop up, and we were even like debating what the live odds might be, and they just so happened to pop up, and we were all saying like plus 200, 250, 300, plus 650.
Yeah, more than going into the fight. It
For
was
someone who
550.
just won the only round of the fight so far.
Yeah.
And I understand the respect for Valentina is deserved and earned. But I saw that and I was like, I got to pounce on this. Like
Impulse betting 101.
Impulse betting 101. And I threw the $25 on it. And when she got that choke in, I was screaming my ass off. I felt bad for our buddy JP who had a parlay with Valentina in it.
Yeah.
Man said at the end of the night, I didn't hit a single bet today. So I felt sorry for him, and I hate to do that because Dominic has certainly done that to me before, where he dances on the grave, and it never makes me feel good. So I do kind of felt bad, but what a moment that was in MMA history for her to get that finish. We talked about it going in, Dom, that I think we were giving Alexa more credit than the majority of people in this space.
I think so.
You know, we thought she was above in terms of a challenge for Valentina. She was a more credible challenger than many of the girls that Valentina had beaten or run through, or even like in Jennifer Maya's case, won, but like you said, maybe not her best performance.
Yeah.
And I think you even said you'd be more surprised if like Geoff Neal beat Shavkat than
I did say that last night.
with Alexa Grasso beating Valentina. All this ends up looking pretty good in hindsight because Alexa Grasso gets that win. I guess my question for you to start things off, even though we kind of hinted at, like I even made the bold claim that I thought Valentina would lose her title this year. I was thinking more Aaron Blanchfield, Tyler Santos, but
you're right.
Hey, I never said that. I just said I thought she'd lose, so I count it as a win. How surprised are you in the way that this happened? You weren't necessarily that shocked. Isn't maybe the word to describe her winning, But how shocking was it for her to get the finish, to get the submission, the way it all kind of came together, less than 30 seconds left in a round when she's down on the cards?
Okay, let me talk this through here. So, in the moment, I was shocked in the way in which she did it. Hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have been as shocked because we saw these capabilities of Alexa. I just wanted to not say Alexa because of last night watching the fights. Anyways, we'll hint that later maybe. But anyways, her fight with Joanne Wood, she showed the ground skills, the submission capabilities. And then she had a stand-up fight with Viviani. I'm pretty sure it was pretty much stand-up the whole 25 minutes when she won that fight. But then, she wins last night by sub. Pair that with, I don't know if you caught this. She said that they practiced exactly that finishing sequence last night. Valentina throws a spinning attack. She evades, goes straight for the back. She said they had been practicing that because they knew Valentina's prone to throw a spin every now and again, whether it's a kick or a spinning back fist. She does it. And honestly, Valentina lands them at a pretty large clip for the most part, too. So the fact that Alexa was able to see that coming, evade it, and instantly pounce on the back before Valentina could finish turning back to face her. And then let us not, let this shy away either. This choke wasn't under the neck. This was a face crank. Did you see the pictures?
Yeah.
The red, and then
the
there's
sunburn.
a huge, it looked like a sunburn on
Hey,
Valentina's
that's a great
jaw.
Observation by Joe Rogan. I know nowadays a lot of people like to throw shit at Joe Rogan. Keen observation by him on the broadcast to bring that up.
Yeah. And I think it just shows the strength that Alexa has, the skill that she has to be able to get her hands in the proper position to squeeze that way, to make Valentina, she didn't put her to sleep. She made Valentina tap. No, it's one thing if you're making a dominant champion tap, and that's what she did, man. It was an emotional moment to see her win that fight because, she came into the UFC with a lot of hype. She faltered a little bit, wins, losses, back and forth at 115. Now she's 5-0 at 125. She's just now entering her prime. She's the sweetest thing, well-spoken, from Mexico, the first Mexican-born female champion. 3 Mexican champions in the first 3 months of the year, one in each month. This is absolutely historical. This is probably going to end up being the most historical year for any single country in UFC history, what's happening in 2023 right now, and it's only March. It's an amazing story. It really is.
And that's kind of amazing because Mexico has, through combat sports, for as long as combat sports have been around, has been such a heavy boxing country. You look at some of the all-time boxers, a lot of them come from Mexico, even like Canelo Alvarez right now from Mexico. MMA has not had a ton of top-tier Mexican MMA talent. Cain Velasquez was sort of being...
He was like the first one.
He was kind of being paraded like the representative of that country, but I don't even think he was Mexican-born, right?
I think he was born in the U.S., yeah.
Not that like takes away from it, but I'm just saying that like I'm not, and it ended up not working out. Like they did the Mexico City fight with him and Fabricio, and he, Cain Velasquez, as great as he was, they never were quite able to capitalize enough on putting him in that position to kind of carry that country into and bringing them into MMA. It didn't last long enough as him as champion to do that.
Yeah.
So it was sort of out of nowhere that these first 3 months have happened. Now we were, we might get some flack for being just 2 guys talking MMA, and not to give us a pat on the back because we've been wrong about so much shit. But Dominic, we were talking about this being that year for Mexican MMA. And, I don't think a lot of people were really aware of that at the time about what this could turn into. And even when we talked about it, I really didn't believe that like we would see all 3 of these Mexican fighters hold titles. Obviously, Alexa was the biggest underdog, but the chances of all 3 of these fighters hitting was just in my head unlikely. But it was a storyline and one that I thought should be discussed. And now it's happened, and it's kind of come out of nowhere. The focus of the sport, when you look at the upcoming talent and the guys at the top, Dagestan, Russia, like they get so much attention, and rightfully so, they ain't going anywhere.
Right.
But this is like come out of nowhere. Like, yes, Brandon Moreno has been a champion before. Yair Rodriguez has been a top contender for a long time. Alexi Grasso was looked at as a very hyped prospect from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But for them to culminate all at the same
At the
time
yeah,
to the pinnacle of the sport, and not just at the same time, Dominic, back to back to back months.
3 straight pay-per-views. Yeah.
We're already saying 2023 is the year of Mexico for MMA, and we're
It's
not
over.
even in April.
It's solidified. Yeah.
We're only 5 days into March. Like,
Yeah.
so it's unprecedented. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it'll ever be duplicated in our lifetime.
Mm.
Well, that might be a bit dramatic, but you get my point.
I get your
this
point.
is
Yeah.
it's special. It's
Yeah.
very special, especially when you consider how this country has not produced top tier MMA talent because most fighters in that country so often go to boxing.
Right. And now you look at it, these 3 are leading that charge for the young generation. A performance institute is being built in Mexico as we speak. It might even be finished, but if not, it's going to be finished this year. The market's always been there. The UFC and Dana have always wanted to hit it. Now they've got 3 champions, a 4th potentially at the end of the year, or someone who at least is challenging for a belt by the end of the year. That's big. Like, there's not really any other countries that have ever had this much momentum, especially seemingly like that at the strike of a match.
You did see it a little bit a couple years, I guess in 2021, once Ngannou won the heavyweight title, and you had Usman, Adesanya, and Ngannou for Africa, and they're also planning to build a PI in Africa.
Very true.
Actually, Mexico is now being the first PI being built over Africa, so that shows you they're really trying to go all in on that country. And that's a good thing to bring up, Dom, about, just talking about what the UFC is trying to do to bring in that market. We have a pay-per-view on May 6th, UFC 288 in Newark, New Jersey.
Random, by the way, kind of, but
I mean, not that random. I mean, come on, Dom.
I prefer Midwest, but it's fine.
Yeah,
selfishly.
I know. Dom's like, oh, that's not random. Dom's like, that's random. They should put it in Ohio. That would be a little less random.
Yeah.
But what I think is interesting is Dana's not shying away about. They said it again. They were talking about. So I don't know where it kind of started, but he had been talking about potentially doing what was it called? Some sort of Mexican appreciation,
like a Cinco de Mayo weekend.
Cinco de Mayo weekend type deal.
Yeah.
Well, that pay-per-view is that weekend, and it's that Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, Canelo Alvarez is boxing the same day, May 6th. And at the time, a lot of people and I think Dana and the boys just kind of assumed he'd do it in Las Vegas, and we're holding that date open because Dana has a lot of respect for Eddie Hearn and blah, blah, blah. That's what he was saying in the post-fight presser. Well, then they say they're actually going to have Canelo fight in Mexico. So Vegas is open.
Yeah.
So Dominic, they were asking, well, is this pay-per-view potentially being moved to Vegas to do that? And he said no, but that they're still looking into potentially doing this. So are we potentially looking at a back-to-back fight weekend? And then they even asked Alexa Grasso, and she thought it'd be a great idea for her and Valentina to run it back
in 2 months
on that card.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's likely.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if you're going to go all out and have this entire weekend built around Cinco de Mayo, and I'm assuming you would plan to have a fight card to go along with it in Vegas, and it's the night before another big pay-per-view that's going to have the bantamweight title defended.
Yeah.
You're probably going to put some pretty good talent on that card, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, is that too crazy, Dom, to be thinking we could be getting, I'm not saying a pay-per-view caliber card on Friday and Saturday, but I'm saying, what if Friday you're looking
fight
at
night action?
Some fight night, but maybe even with a title at the top, like you would see with Mighty Mouse and stuff back in the day.
Yeah. Man, I'll tell you what. Because we've talked about the back-to-back thing recently. If we hit on that too, we're on fire right now, the Joes in 2023. But seriously, maybe. We're here for it. I think the most realistic person from Mexico you can get on that card as a big name is Brandon. He fought in January. It's realistic for him to fight in May. Opponent-wise,
Pantoja.
Well, I guess Pantoja. Yeah, of course. Pantoja's there.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Let him in, coach.
There it is. Vegas, Friday the 5th, Cinco de Mayo celebration. Stack it with Mexican fighters. The next day, Newark, New Jersey, UFC 288. Triple C's back. And now that I'm thinking about it, Newark, New Jersey, Aljo and the boys, they train out of that area, Sarah Longo gym. So, okay, I'll take back my little hate for it there. Yeah, I'll take it back.
Newark.
I'll take it back. But still, Midwest, anywhere soon. Just saying, Dana and the boys. But, hey, I'm here for a back-to-back weekend. That'd be quite cool. That'd be something that the UFC's never really done for the most part, outside of like an Ultimate Fighter finale and then something on a Saturday. But yeah,
but he didn't shy away from it at the post-fight presser. He didn't clarify and say, "Oh no, this." No, he said like, "We're still looking into it. Like maybe."
But I'll say this, Noah, that'd be cool and all. But 3 Mexican championship fights in Mexico would be a hell of a lot cooler to me.
Yeah. That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, that would be insane. Insane.
Jesus, what a card that would be. I don't know that. I don't know if they'll emphasize it to the point where those 3 title fight cards feels like a bit of like a big Vegas event or a big New York Madison Square Garden type event. Do you do that for Mexico? Like maybe.
Dude,
I don't know. Like what kind of arena, what kind of capacity, like, that probably plays a factor, I'm sure, in these decisions. Because what's going to be the most comfortable idea to do it. You do it either like an end of the year type show. Like that's the thing. If they want to do this like Mexican or Cinco de Mayo weekend, that's great. But what if like, instead of doing like a Cinco de Mayo, I know it makes sense because of the holiday. But if you wanted to do like a, Mexican heritage like weekend or something, but you did it like the last weekend of the year and you do an end of the year card in Vegas and you have those 3 champions on the card. I mean, that's expecting them to hold the titles until then. But I'm just saying, like, the end of the year show, these are the kind of shows that get those real stacked 3 title fight cards. So
you're right.
Who knows if anything will come out of that whole Cinco de Mayo weekend, but it's very weird and interesting that they're not backing away from it when they literally have a pay-per-view Saturday in Newark, New Jersey, which Dominic apparently can't stand. But let's talk about Valentina Shevchenko for a second, and we'll kind of bring it back around to what will likely be the next title fight, which is these 2 again.
Yep.
Valentina Shevchenko loses her title after was this her attempt at a title defense number 8?
This would have been number 8. Yeah.
So she had 7 title defenses. One of the best women's fighters in MMA history. I would argue she's at worst second.
I would say second at worst. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to believe Nunes should be put above her just because she beat her twice. But I understand there's some controversy with that second fight, especially. But neither here nor there. One of the best fighters of all time, women's fighters of all time, which is a rare thing to happen in this sport, except, well, we've kind of gotten it more often in the last year and some change than you normally do. Let's kind of compare this scenario, the fight we saw, to some of those other ones. Juliana Pena defeating Amanda Nunes. You saw when Usman got head kick KO'd by Leon Edwards. And then Alex Pereira knocking out his former kickboxing foe, Israel Adesanya. When you look at it, and I'm pretty sure, obviously Pena and Nunes already had their second fight. And Nunes dominated, took her belt back. Actually, I'm not going to compare it to those others. I actually want to stick on the Pena Nunes thing for a second. The idea of this fight being run back, no matter when it is, no matter if it's 2 months from now or 6 months from now or whatever. As you sit here today, this is way too early to even be thinking about it, but just work with me here. Do you think that a second matchup between these 2 would be closer in how it would look to the Rose Joanna rematch or the Nunes Pena rematch? And do you get the differences there? Rose gets the finish in the first fight. Yeah. Second fight, she comes out and beats her over 5 rounds, kind of proves she's the better fighter.
Yeah.
Pena surprises Nunes, gets that finish. Nunes comes back and dominates. Like, what do you think is the more likely scenario of the 2 right now?
The former, Rose versus Joanna too, for sure. Because, and I'm trying to think a little bit more of that first Juliana and Amanda fight, but Pena kind of bull rushed out of nowhere, right? She wasn't really having much
So,
success.
so the way it kind of went was round one, Amanda won by getting the fight to the ground,
Yeah.
controlling, landing some decent ground and pound. That was pretty much it. She looked good. Round two, she looked extremely gassed, and it's like, whoa, what's going
Right.
on here? Well, Pena, not with the most technical of strikes, but was like starting to land these big shots and kind of
Capitalized.
and basically Nunes looked so exhausted that when
Yeah.
that fight got down, Pena was able to get her in a submission and submit her. So you see, that was probably Nunes's worst performance we'd seen her in a
Yeah.
long time, at
Yeah.
least. And yeah, so that's how that fight went the first time.
See, it's so much different from how this fight was going because
Right.
again, I know it was 2-1 Valentina, in probably going to be 3-1, but
You think so? Like,
I
well,
I
consider
think
like what if she
Valentina was
did? What?
winning the fourth.
I mean, I don't know. I
Oh,
I
you
guess
mean
she
if
might
it
have.
finished with her in the
Yeah,
choke still?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I guess I wasn't thinking about that.
You're
Yeah,
probably right though. Before that, I don't really remember now. It's all blur.
but maybe
But before
Alexa
that,
did.
yeah,
Maybe it ties though
you
too.
might have been
Too.
right. You might have been right though. If she doesn't get that back, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Valentina may be
Uh,
up 3-1.
but regardless of a 3-1 scorecard, it was not a dominant 3-1. Like, yeah, Valentina won 2 rounds with ground control, but even I think in both rounds, like Alexa was able to get back up a couple of times. Like and Valentina wasn't doing a lot of damage on the ground either. She was kind of just content. Alexa was in bad positions, got out of them, was able to work her way into better positions from the bottom. It was not dominant for Valentina. Like she looked great, Valentina, but it wasn't dominant. Is that fair to say? I mean, can I say that in the same sentence?
Mm-hmm.
So Alexa, in on the feet, was winning the fight, which I think is a huge, huge thing to have to go into a rematch when that is Valentina's primary strength. And now you look at Valentina going into a rematch and thinking, oh shit, Alexa's just submitted me on the ground, albeit she had my back and, whatever the case. But I think a rematch is very close. I think going into a rematch, odds should be no bigger than Valentina minus 200. And that's me being generous, to be quite honest with you. And I am going to go out on a limb and say Alexa wins a rematch too while I'm at it. Might as
Okay.
well.
You took that a step further. I love it. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
it. I tend to agree with you in the sense of I think it's closer to a Rose Joanna second fight than Pena Nunes second fight. Nothing in this fight should tell you, because you have to take it on a fight by fight basis, right? Like there was enough of an anomaly in the Pena Nunes fight to be weary of the idea that Pena could do it a second time.
Yeah.
Because that's how I felt after that fight. I mean, I remember coming on here and just saying, like, look, Pena won the title. It was an amazing upset. I also can't sit here and say that I feel like that was like a title winning performance. I felt like Nunes lost more than
Right.
Pena won, kind of thing. In this case, I don't think that at all. Grasso was in there every step of the way.
Yeah.
Scorecards might have been getting away from her, and that is going to be a thing. And when they run it back, Valentina pretty much landed takedowns at will here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, very rarely did she whiff on a takedown. And what I thought she did a very good job of, Dom, is she knew when to go for the takedowns
Yeah.
because she didn't take down Grasso, and Grasso would be like right against the fence and be able to use it to get back up. She was taking her down in the middle of the octagon where
Yeah.
you really have to depend on your technique and form to get you up. So it would not shock me at all if Valentina wins her title back in a second fight. And I know it wouldn't surprise you either because you're
Right.
not saying, even though you're saying Grasso you think would win, wouldn't surprise you. And it wouldn't surprise me either. But do I tend to favor Alexa in a second fight? I think I do. And I think it all kind of comes down to who do I think can improve more in the area that they lacked here. That was word
I get
vomit.
what you're saying.
Before that second fight, is Alexa Grasso going to be able to work enough on the takedown defense to where she can stay on her feet, Or is Valentina going to be more active in the striking or
Right.
throw with more power or whatever it might be? Valentina's an electric striker, very good striker, very technical.
Yeah.
But Grasso was better there the whole
Yes.
fight, and I just don't see where Valentina gets that much better
Right.
in
Then
that
she already
area for
is.
you know,
Yeah.
she's fought with that style. That's what got her to the title. That's what
Yeah.
won her all these championships and these defenses. She's not all of a sudden just going to change who she is on that
Yep.
on that.
Yep.
And you can be look, you don't have to be confident that Alexa can stop the takedowns either. I'm just saying I would expect her to come in here thinking, look,
Okay,
I
I need to
outstruck
prep
her
more for
last
this.
time. You know, I
Right.
need to be more prepared. That's where she
Yep.
thinks she's going to win this fight.
Yep.
So every fight starts on the feet. You know, that's kind of a cliche to say, but you know, it's a little bit true. So
Yeah.
that's sort of how I break down a second fight. I think in a lot of ways it goes somewhat similar to this one. I'm not saying there'd be a finish like we saw, but I expect a close technical fight where both ladies have to use every bit of their skill in every
Yep.
area
Mm-hmm.
to get the edge on those scorecards.
100%.
And I think that's going to make an amazing just intrigue for that second fight. It's a shame for Shevchenko to lose her title like this because, you know, Dana said afterwards that he thinks the idea of doing Shevchenko Nunes 3 is pretty much done now.
It
I
should have
know
been a
me and
long
you were
time
not,
ago.
well,
Yeah.
I know how me and you were
Yeah.
not like as impressed by the idea of that fight as some,
Yeah.
but I also think this hurts the chances of her ever fighting like a Zhang Weili.
Yeah, I would say
I mean, if
probably.
she gets her title back, maybe you're talking about it again, but you know,
Doesn't feel as big though,
does it feel as
kind of.
big? You know, and I mean, Amanda Nunes was in a similar position as Shevchenko is now. So in a way, I could still see that third fight eventually being run if she got the title back. But Dominic, if she loses again, I could see her going back up to bantamweight. She talked about that, like, but she did say the only way she'd go back up is for the title fight. So you know, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I don't know how many fights we have left with Valentina if she loses her next fight, and
And the same can be said for Amanda too, just as well, because we
yeah,
don't know how much
so
is left for Amanda. But yeah, I look forward to it. I think it's an awesome rivalry. I think it's an awesome potential rematch. And I think it's awesome to have a potential even trilogy if Valentina were to get the belt
yeah.
back. So this is an
And
amazing
let
story.
me put one thing real quick that I
Hmm.
just kind of popped in my head to say. Regardless if Valentina gets her title back, if she does it in spectacular fashion, she may be a champion for another couple years. But her days of being dominant, I think, are done.
Yeah. And I think that's credit to the division
No,
as
I
well.
don't think
That's
she's
what it is.
actually. I think this
Right.
performance showed because I was wondering. You know, I
Yeah.
brought up after the Santos fight, has she maybe lost a step?
Right.
I don't
Right.
think she lost a step. I
She
think
looked like
the
old Valentina.
competition
Yep.
has rose to the occasion.
For
And it's
sure.
Grasso for sure right now. But don't think that some of these other ladies in the division are not going to give her troubles or even Grasso troubles or each other troubles. You know, Aaron Blanchfield's the one I've been talking about, but Taylor Santos is still right there. I mean, we thought Taylor Santos won the fight in the first place against Valentina. So,
Yeah.
and then you still got girls like Casey O'Neill, Macy Barber potentially, Manon Fior, like all
Yep.
these. There's a lot that there could be a lot of hot potato going on with this title, but I think it's a good place for the division to be in. I like the
Mm,
parity. You know,
yes.
Valentina is an exceptional champion. She was an exceptional champion. She's still an exceptional fighter. But now that she's chasing the belt again, I think things feel this is what the division kind of needed for I think everybody else who was still looking at this division as one of the weak links of women's MMA
Wake
to
up.
come around to the idea of wait a minute, there's a lot more talent in this division than there was when they introduced it. It's finally at a healthy point where we have multiple contenders that can potentially win a title depending on the matchup, depending on the night.
Yeah, and I just want to actually bring up a topic to kind of finish from a couple weeks ago because now we can discuss it again a little bit further. We said if Valentina wins, Blanchfield's got next. If Alexa wins, it throws a wrench in Blanchfield's future. Well,
Mm.
Alexa Grasso just won. Do we get Santos Blanchfield in the meantime, new number one contender fight? And we get to see that fight, which was originally planned, because I would say yes.
I will say yes because I know Blanchfield said she wanted the title next. She called for the title next. But when asked if she would take another fight, she said, if that's what they want, then I would take another fight.
And it's like,
So if she's not going to hold out for it,
yeah,
then
right.
I don't think they're going to like wait, and it may, but Dom, if for some reason they run this back, Cinco de Mayo and,
Yeah,
this
in 2
crazy
months,
idea,
then she
this
can.
crazy idea that I'm talking about, if that were to happen,
Yeah,
then maybe
you
you
wait.
don't.
Yeah.
But I think more than likely we see a 5-round main event, Taylor Santos, Aaron Blanchfield. And I cannot wait to see that if that happens.
I'm here for that. I'm going to go one step further, and this may be a discussion for 2 more weeks. But if Casey O'Neill comes back and beats Jennifer Maia, let's go ahead and do a main event. Also, Casey O'Neill versus Manon Fior as well. We'll get them all going, baby.
Yeah, there you go. How long's Manon out for? She's still injured, right?
Yeah, you got to figure by the time Casey fights in 2 weeks and is ready to fight again later in the year, hopefully Manon would be ready.
Because it
Then you
wasn't
got
like
all
an
the
injury.
futures.
It wasn't like a torn ACL or anything that's got her out,
I
right?
don't think it was anything too bad, just something enough to not allow her to get this shot before Alexa, I think. So,
But yeah, good shout there with Casey O'Neill. We'll be talking about her pretty soon. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything for this co-main event, and we got one more for the headliners here. Shavkat Rakhmonov gets the 3rd round submission. Look at all the submissions on the night, Dom. I mean, the top 3 fights, all submissions. He gets that done over Geoff Neal, 4 minutes 17 seconds of round number 3. Shout out Laura Sanko.
well, yeah, of course.
And I know, like, it's funny, right? Like, Laura, like, everybody's saying she was simping over Shavkat. But in all seriousness, I want to give Laura Sanko a shout here because I think she did a better job in promoting Shavkat than really anybody else has done up to this point.
Ooh, Noah, bravo. Great point. Great point.
I mean, like, it's obvious. I mean, married woman, right? Yeah, whatever. I know James Krause shit, whatever. I mean, let's try not to be like stupid guys for a second and just like consider the fact that this is a married woman. She's obviously like super, what's the word? Like,
she's super high on this guy's talent.
Yeah, like she thinks this guy's going to be like an amazing talent, as do a lot of us. And yeah, it's fun to make the jokes and stuff. And even the team she was working with, like they were all making the jokes and stuff. But in all seriousness, I think she deserves a lot of praise, and I hope that the UFC recognized the job she did in promoting a fighter like Shavkat, who doesn't speak English, who I think the UFC is high on, but maybe was wondering, how do we really get this guy to that next level? So going in, Laura doing a lot of good work, getting a lot of social media clips to pop off with her, simping over Shavkat. And then Dominic, he goes in there and has an absolute banger with Geoff Neal.
Fight of the night.
Fight of the night. Shavkat did not dominate the performance, but he did not lose a single round of this fight. And I think that was very telling because Geoff Neal's damn good. This actually might have been, I saw someone say this was the best performance of Geoff Neal's career, and that's even considering what he did to Luque. Yeah. Now, I don't know if I can go that far, but this looked like the Geoff Neal that fought against Vicente Luque. He did not look at all compromised. By the weight miss, and yeah, I know that sucks, but Dana, I actually think it's cool. Dana still gave him his fight of the night bonus money, so I think that's cool. Debate about it what you will, because it was like a 4-pound weight miss. I know we've been hard on guys in the past for lack of professionalism, whatever, but you never know what these guys got going on, or girls, and I'll let them figure that out behind the scenes. But for what he came in here and showed, he was game, he was ready, and he put everything on the line to get that victory. But Shavkat is already ready to be a champion. Like, he is already a championship caliber fighter, and it showed here. He ate some bombs. Credit to Shavkat's chin. Credit to Geoff Neal for being able to land. Shavkat was hurt. Was that? Tell me if I'm misremembering this fight. So I don't think Shavkat lost a single round, but in round 3, isn't that when Geoff Neal hurt him the worst? Like, had him staggered, wobbled. And right after he did that is when Shavkat came back, started hurting Neal real bad, and then gets that submission locked in. If I'm remembering that correctly. talk about a guy, what they say about a wounded animal, nothing more dangerous than a wounded animal because they feel like they have
Mm.
nothing to lose. They go into a kill mode, protect themselves. Shavkat did that. If I'm remembering the fight correctly, that's what we saw here. He called out Colby Covington.
Oh,
Dominic,
ooh,
I know you said the biggest fight for the rest of the year on Verbal Sparring was Colby versus Hamzat. If Hamzat's truly moving to 185, hey,
yep,
here's your new Hamzat, Shavkat
yep.
Rakhmonov.
Hmm.
Put him in there. Dana said one of the guys at the press conference asked Dana if there was any update on Colby Covington. Dana said he's ready to fight. We've offered him a couple opponents. He's accepted them, but they just haven't worked out. If he's truly accepting anybody or anybody that makes sense, this Shavkat needs that kind of fight to project to potentially propel him into title contention. And if Colby Covington were to beat Shavkat Rakhmonov, I mean, how do you deny him potentially getting another shot at the title?
Oh, it would be such a massive win for both guys because whoever wins that fight deserves a title. That's how massive that fight is. How many times have I came on this show and talked about these young prospects, young phenoms that look like they have all the potential in the world, and I'm just like, it's cool to see him run through everybody, but I want to see him be tested. Well, Shavkat took the fucking UFC version of the ACT last night, and he passed and got a 30 out of 36. I think is a really good grade on an ACT. To go through this type of war with Geoff Neal was unbelievable. To have the resolve, to have the chin to take these shots, and then to be able to land back, and then the finish was just brutal, disgusting. Neal went out on his feet. Yeah, this guy is special. This is a special type of talent. Kudos to you. The shout out for Laura, by the way that you kind of put that into my brain is a great point. And it ties in because I remember hearing at one point during this fight, Joe Rogan had said, this guy's an elite talent, but nobody knows his name. Nobody knows his name. But now he's been on this big pay-per-view and he gets this, big fight with a top 10 guy. And you factor in the Laura Sanko pre-fight into the fight that you get.
Yeah.
It's a perfect storm for a young fighter like this that's entering his prime, 5-0 in the UFC, 17-0 overall with 17 finishes. How often do you see guys with that many wins and they're all by finish? Him and Colby is massive. I said the same thing you just said last night. If Hamzat is for sure going to 185, that's what you told me. His manager and stuff had kind of talked about that too. Colby versus Shavkat is massive for a 5-round main event or a premier bout on a pay-per-view, even a co-main. If you're going to have like a one title fight pay-per-view, put that as a co-main. That's a big fight with so many questions, so many big implications. Oh, that's the fight to make. That is the fight to make.
I'm not sure how much those clips of Laura really got outside of the UFC bubble. Maybe it was mostly fans that are already aware of Shavkat. But what's telling to me is like the first clip where she was like, he gives me chills or whatever. They were ranking their like top 5 prospects in the UFC. Dominic, she didn't even have him at number 1. She had him at number 2. But did you see the clip of her talking about Hamza being number 1 going around?
No, I did not.
No, I didn't. So clearly,
Yeah.
she was able to do a pretty good job of showing people that whether or not he's the top prospect in the UFC, he's a guy you need to pay attention to.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it worked because going in, he obviously had a great placement on the card in that feature bout. But also, I think it raised his value just a little bit. Even if it was just the teensy smidge, it was enough to where people were going, maybe, this card, has Jon Jones on it. It's got another title fight on it. And I'm kind of talking more on the casual side, people who maybe aren't as aware of top to bottom how stacked this card was. They're like, but there's a Shavkat guy that I've been hearing a lot about. 16 wins, 16 finishes.
Yeah.
Let me see what this guy's all about. Well, make it 17 for 17. And
in a fight like that.
Yeah. And actually, that's one last thing I want to say before we move on. Dominic, how often, and some people, when they comment, they do not like when we say this about great fighters. We've had this people come at us when we talked about Islam like this. When you have these fighters who look indestructible, who look perfect, who are tearing through everybody, we've said it, I think, about Kayla Harrison, about Islam, about some others. You want to see how they react when they're not just running through people, when they're
Shit
in a
hits the fan.
dogfight,
Yeah.
when they get dropped, when
Yeah.
whatever happens. We actually had 2 examples of that on this card. Shavkat here, Ian Gary deeper on the
Oh yeah.
prelims.
Yeah. True.
So you want to see something like that because that'll tell you like truly how great they are when not everything's going perfect for them.
Hmm.
Can they adapt? Can they work on the fly? You know, I think Shavkat showed all of that here. And shout out to Geoff Neal. I think he earned a lot of respect here from
Oh yeah.
Dana and the boys. Obviously, hopefully next fight makes weight. But assuming he can do that, I think he's due for another big fight in his future as well.
Well, you know what? And I'll say something too on the side of Geoff Neal. He's probably another guy that probably doesn't have the respect that he deserves. He's been a pretty underrated guy
Yeah.
to be number 7 in this weight class. So that
Well,
was a big
right
opportunity
now
for
he's
him.
certainly underrated right now because if you look at what he did here, being the only guy to really show any sort of
Yeah.
offense against Shavkat, and then you look at what he did to Vicente Luque, who looked
That speaks a lot to me.
impenetrable.
Yeah.
Stephen Wonderboy Thompson put such a beat down on Vicente, and Vicente didn't even go down.
Yeah.
You know, that shows like he is vastly improved from the guy who was losing to Wonderboy, to Neil Magny in back-to-back fights.
Yeah.
And he's dangerous. He's dangerous. He had, there were points in this fight where I thought that there was a chance that
Oh
Shavkat
yeah.
could go down.
Yes, for sure.
And if that's the case, and Shavkat showed an amazing chin, some of those shots probably drop anybody
Oh,
else. And that's exactly why,
yeah.
give him anybody else in this top 10. And I mean, run it back with Wonderboy. It might not go the same as it did the first time. I'm just saying.
Yeah, love that.
So we will move on. More coming from UFC 285, but we do have one fight announcement to talk about real quick, Dom. She's been busy so far this year. Jessica Andrade,
Dude.
looking to make her 3rd fight in 5 months. May 6th, UFC 288. She will be taking on Xiaonan. And I actually think both women deserve a lot of credit for taking this fight because they both just fight the baddest and best, and they don't care if it's a bad matchup for them or whatever. Xiaonan coming off of probably her best win of her UFC career, first main event against
Yeah.
Mackenzie Dern.
Yep.
Gets a big decision win there. Jessica Andrade obviously coming off that disappointing loss to Aaron Blanchfield, but before that looked absolutely incredible against Lauren Murphy.
Yep.
So now she's back at 115. How do you expect this one to go, Dom? Do you think that what do you are you hoping Andrade just really sticks it out in one division, or are you all right with this kind of hopping back and forth?
No, if anybody's going to do it, it's her. I love it. I think it's awesome. She's like, well, shit, things are kind of busy up here at 125. I just lost. Might as well go back down to 115 and see how everybody's doing. And that's a great fight, man. Her and Yan Xiaonan. I think that's a really intriguing stylistic matchup. Yan Xiaonan is a very good talent. I know she's went under the radar. She's had a loss to Carla. That was a big loss for her in her biggest moment. So she did falter there, but then to bounce back like she did against Mackenzie Dern looked really good in that fight for 5 rounds. It said a lot to me. If she can beat Jessica Andrade, she's right back on that horse. She's right back as a title contender in 115-pound division. And if Andrade wins, she was already a contender, and now she's definitely a contender. This also rules out the possibility of Andrade and Rose. So please give me Lemos versus Zhang Wei Li and Tatiana Suarez versus Rose Namajunas UFC. Let's get it going, baby. Woo! I'm putting together all these weight classes, 115, 125, the women's divisions. I got it out. I got the top 5 figured out, Noah.
I was with you, and then you put Lemos in the title fight, and I'm like,
you have to just accept it at this point, Noah. You just
I know. I really have to not die on that hill because it's really not a bad. It's actually a really fun fight.
It's a sick fight.
And her beating Marina Rodriguez, I mean, that's really good stuff. And I mean, nobody really had looked. I mean, Marina Rodriguez had looked really good over the last couple of years. All right, fine. I mean, I said 0% chance.
Give me
probably
one.
higher than that.
Yes.
I'm not gonna say I'll give you 0.5%. No, I'm
okay.
just kidding. But Dominic, as we get into the rest now, the way I'm going to do this, we're kind of just
A
switching up a little
little
bit. Instead of having specific fights on our script, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it up by like we have two more fights on the main card, then we have a batch on the prelims and a batch on the early prelims. So I'll go through the main card results here. We'll kind of do our takeaways for that, and then
okay.
go
Okay.
through the results of the prelims, takeaways there, and then we'll do early prelims, takeaways there. Sound good, Dom?
Perfect. Perfect.
So, rest of the main card, only two fights to talk about here because we had three headliners that we discussed. Mateusz Gamrot gets a split decision win over Jalin Turner in a very interesting fight as both guys were looking to take the next step in their evolution. And to open our main card, Dom, there was a lot of drama at Ginger's house as we were sweating getting this fight on the TV in time. But Bo Nickal makes it look pretty easy. First round submission win over Jamie Pickett. Dominic, my big takeaway, I'm actually going to tell you a weird take. I'm admitting this is a hot take.
Okay.
This is a spicy take. It's a weird take. It's probably not one many people are going to. I'm not sure how many people are actually going to have strong feelings about this fight one way or another, but I was thinking about this Gamrot Turner fight today.
Okay.
So Mateusz Gamrot gets a split decision win. And
Mhm.
I would say I thought Gamrot won the fight. 2-1, how I had it, that 30-27 is a little suspect to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But whatever. Neither here nor there. The right guy won, in my opinion. But I think you could have scored it for Turner. But I
For
thought
sure.
Gamrot did enough to win. Despite that, going into the fight, okay, even though I put a bet on Jalin Turner by finish, I did that for the value, not because I actually thought he was going to win. If you asked me going into the fight, who has the greater potential in this lightweight division to potentially compete for a title or win a title? Well, truthfully, I don't really love either guy's chances to get to that level, which might be a hot take in of itself.
Ooh. Okay.
But yeah, I would have told you Gamrot.
Mhm.
Then Gamrot wins the fight. And yet, if you asked me that same question now, I'd say Jalin Turner. Do you okay? You're not. I was expecting a little more of a reaction, but I take it that. Are you just thinking about like? Have you even processed what I just said, or is it hitting you? Like how?
I think going in, although I thought it was a tough fight for Jalin, I would have looked at him as the younger guy that is built so uniquely for
Yeah,
155 pounds,
it's true.
as someone that just in the future, more longevity, I saw more potential in, I think, over the long haul. And I think I do agree with you that after the fight concludes, even though Gamrot wins, I still lean Turner for the potential
Okay.
going forward. So yeah, I agree. I just had
So
to.
well, yeah, but you have to think it's probably a little weird that I was more on Gamrot. He wins the
Mhm,
fight, and now
mhm.
I've said I'm
Flipped.
thinking Turner has the.
Yep.
The reason is there is just this one thing that just keeps sticking out of these Gamrot fights to me. Obviously, he's a terrific wrestler, and he's great
Mhm.
at holding the position. Great in scrambles. We saw that against Armand in that main
Yeah.
event.
Yeah.
Got a great motor, all of it.
Mhm.
Dominic, when damage is such a key part of this scoring criteria, I just don't see enough of it from him when he gets these fights in these positions.
Mhm. Mhm.
And Jalin Turner, this is going to come off like a bit of a slight, and I don't mean it to because I think Jalin Turner's great. But I think the way I kind of viewed Jalin Turner going in is like what you just said, how uniquely built he is, the tallest lightweight. I think he's got the longest reach at lightweight. He had all these finishes in a row. Looked like a guy who had really just come into his own and being such a tough matchup for a lot of these smaller size lightweights. I almost looked at him as a bit of a gimmick, like you go to a pizza shop and it says they have the world's largest pizza, and it's really just a slice of pizza that's essentially the size of a entire you know
Yeah.
pizza pie.
Right.
Like it's a gimmick because literally they just cooked a full pizza pie but put it in the shape of a slice.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like
I
I kind
I
of
got.
view Jalin Turner as like he's got these great headline, like little headliner things to throw out, like the biggest lightweight, the tallest lightweight, the longest reach. He's 6'2". He knocks out everybody or submits everybody he fights. But I just didn't really see him ever actually getting to the dance, the big
Okay.
dance.
Mhm.
now I can see it at least a little bit more. And that was in a losing effort because
Okay.
I thought when this fight stood standing, I thought he looked pretty good. I thought
He's
he obviously it was a tough matchup for Gamrot in that realm. Gamrot's biggest skill in this fight was anytime he got hurt and looked like he was about to be dropped, he
yeah.
was magnificent
Yeah.
at immediately grabbing a leg and not letting go.
Yeah. Very good
And I mean,
reaction.
multiple times he got hurt on the feet and ended up
Mhm.
on top.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're doing that, I mean, that's
Yeah.
when you're talking defensively, that's an underrated part of Gamrot's game. But I just worry about Gamrot in terms of like the Armand fight, he did end up getting the nod on the scorecards. But I think more times than not, you run that same fight back and it goes the exact same way. I think Armand's getting those scorecards more times than he isn't.
Yeah.
And if Gamrot continues to abide by this game plan where if he's not able to get like a submission finish like he did against Jeremy Stevens real quick or whatever and plays the control game, holds top position, that leaves him very vulnerable to lose rounds by simply getting hit with one or two big shots,
Yeah.
which is sort of what we ran into here with Jalin Turner. He dominated in terms of holding top control and getting the fight to the ground. But Jalin Turner, being that one, I think he did a pretty good job defensively off his back to get
He did. Yeah.
back up. But, you know, having these long limbs and probably the strength to just get himself against the fence and get back up, we were kind of wondering if he might steal a round or two by simply landing a couple hard shots that hurt Gamrot and him not actually landing that much damage back. That's my
Yeah.
thing with Gamrot. I think, is there a world where he is competing for a title or a champion? Yes, actually, it's not too far out of the realm of possibility because he's not that far away.
Right.
But I think there's just too much of a chance that he could leave himself vulnerable to those momentum swings in a fight very quickly, especially when the judging criteria nowadays emphasizes score or damage
Yeah. Over
so
control.
much more than control.
Yep. Yep. Those are very
Yep.
good points. Something I didn't really think about, but I would agree. Jalen's stock rises more, I even think, than Gamrot's in a losing outing here because he looked that good. And this was a short notice fight for both guys. Yes, Jalin was in a camp for Dan Hooker, so he had more time to train, but I don't doubt for a second that Mateusz isn't training. He didn't fight Beneil all that long ago either. So, this is a great win for Gamrot, but you bring up good points. And you even said it last night as we were watching. There's just that damage isn't there. Imagine once he gets these guys down, if he's doing something with it, we're talking about an elite level lightweight here. Like
Dom,
he's
there
just,
was a couple times he snuck in a crucifix out of nowhere. Like I was like shocked when he had it like in, and I was like, "Whoa, where did
yeah.
that come from?" Which
And
again
then,
speaks to the creativity
yeah.
and the ability to get it there. But then he wouldn't be really able to get anything off
Yeah.
before Turner escaped out of it.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that maybe in his next fight he does show more of that, but through the last 3 fights now,
Mm-hmm.
that's been a keen takeaway is that if he's able to get that fight to the ground, which is where he wants to, because he's not exactly one of the better strikers in the division, I'm not seeing the accumulation of damage to clearly take rounds, especially if his opponent's able to get back to their feet and do damage of their own.
Yeah. I think that's very well said. I'm really interested to see how both these guys get matched up to next because I feel like they both deserve to, like, Gamrot deserves to fight someone ahead. I know it's busy up there right now, so you might not get that.
Mhm.
But same for Jalin. Like, neither guy necessarily deserved to fight backward. And if they do, not very much. This was a really good fight. It was a high level fight. We've seen Jalin been starching people these past 4 or 5 in a row. But now we saw him go 15 straight minutes. He can hang for 15 straight minutes against someone that stylistically isn't a great matchup with him, and he could have arguably won the fight. Both guys do come out with positives, but again, I think more positives or more takeaways for the loser in this instance.
Mhm.
So,
Before we get to the prelims, Dom, what would be your big takeaway from Bo Nickal's first showing on an official UFC card?
welcome to the UFC. But did we expect anything else? Is the thing. Now, we had some technical difficulties. getting this fight on.
Mhm.
So we did not get to necessarily see the talking points that I've been seeing. Nutshot
Yep.
on the takedown. Now I
People are
need to go
talking
back and
about
see
they're
this.
talking about Toegate. I think
Okay.
Nutgate
Yeah.
is the bigger one for me.
Yeah. So I've not been able to obviously go back and see this yet today, but I would like to see this just as for my own sake. But we tuned in once it was on the ground. We finally got our technical difficulties sorted out, and Bo was doing both things. Now I saw more people though, kind of even saying, yeah, he got the first round sub, but you had this opening for the arm triangle forever, and it took you way too long to get it. It took you way too long to get into the right position, yada, yada, yada. And while I'm not agreeing with that, I'm just bringing it up. But like, really, guys, it was his UFC debut. He's fighting a guy with 5 times the amount of his experience, and you're complaining that he didn't lock in the submission 45 seconds sooner. What the fuck, man? This guy is something special. He's 4-0, 4 finishes, a national champion wrestler. He's well spoken. There's a reason the UFC put him on a main card. There's a reason he opened the main card in his UFC debut, and it's because they believe in his potential. His skill set is something we don't have much of at 185, and with that skill set, he can very quickly launch himself into title contention. We talked about on Friday, there could be a world where he is 8-0, 8 professional fights, and fighting for a title. That's just not out of the realm of possibility here, if we're being quite frank. Very excited to see what comes next for him. How quickly are they going to push a guy like Bo? We've got a lot of young star potential now in the UFC. We've got the Patties, we've got the Bows, we've got
Ian Gary.
Ian Gary was on this card. I'm blanking on a couple others, obviously, but there are a lot of young people that have potential to become something big. Bo's ahead of all of them right now, and it's been one fight. If we're talking star potential, okay.
Well,
Don't be
I mean,
we've seen. Sorry, I didn't finish yet.
no, you're good.
I went off and then forgot to say my main point. We've seen these other prospects that can be stars have very lateral moves, not necessarily many vertical ones. Okay, Ian, I believe, he's kind of had 3 straight lateral moves in my opinion. Song Kenan may have been a little bit step up before, but you get it.
Yeah.
What are they going to do with Bo? We're going to go same level as Jamie. We're going to up it. We're going to up it big. That's all. But now go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, technical difficulties aside, it looked like a nut shot. But he said he was interviewed immediately after, and he said no, it wasn't. He said I hit him in the thigh, the inner thigh, and he like winced, like trying to pretend like it was a nut shot to try to get the ref to break him up and have Bo lose that position. I don't know. I saw people saying both ways. Like it kind of looked like he was aiming for the thigh and it like ricocheted into the nuts. That's how it looked to me.
Okay.
Did I look at it super closely? Did I put it under the lens? I mean, the microscope, whatever. No, I mean, maybe not. I was just looking at it on my phone when I woke up, who knows? But I mean, I hate to say it like this, but if it was a nut shot and the ref treats it like such, separates them, whatever.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
What are the chances that it doesn't just happen again where he gets that same position and takes him right down again? I know anything can happen, but
right.
Again, if it was like, I hate that for Jamie Pickett because you should get some time to recover because nobody likes to get kneed in the nuts, Dom. I can tell you, it don't feel good.
This is true.
But not a whole lot to say. I mean, when you're talking about star potential, he definitely has that it factor. He's got that ability to talk the talk and walk the walk.
Yep.
4-0 as a professional mixed martial artist. Has he even seen the second round in his career?
I don't think he's seen longer than 254. I don't think he's seen longer than 3 minutes.
So as of now, I sort of expect a God, I don't know. Like part of me wants to say I expect a like longer build up to him getting to those top tier.
Am I crazy for saying I kind of don't want that though?
I don't think you're crazy. I mean, it could in hindsight turn out
yeah, that's the problem. Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think his wrestling, he's one of the most accomplished collegiate wrestlers ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, wrestling's so important in MMA.
Yeah,
He's gonna
see the heavyweight Q&A to hear about that, by the
I
way. They
mean,
touched
and look
on
at the
that.
division he's in, Dom. This, this isn't like when he in a lot of ways he does have similarities to Paddy Pimblett in terms of star potential and you know, um, kind of the hype for him coming in, whatever.
Mhm.
But where I'm hard on Paddy Pimblett is not actually due to Paddy Pimblett's. Like, I think Paddy Pimblett's very talented. I think he's very good. He's exciting. He's
Mhm.
fun, but he fights at lightweight.
Yeah.
Bo
Yeah.
Nickal fights at middleweight, and you consider the wrestling factor. Derek Brunson's about to retire. Who's going to
That's
be the
it.
top wrestler in the elite of the elite at middleweight moving forward?
It's already Bo
Marvin
Nickal, and he's not
Vettori, I
there.
guess. Marvin
Yeah.
Vettori, like the best wrestler. I mean,
Yeah.
Bo Nickal has such an advantage in that department. Like, you have to look at him as like he could take down so many of these top 10 middleweights. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, are they going to be able to get back up? Are they going to
Yeah,
be able
exactly.
to defend off submissions and
Yeah.
ground and pound? Part of me wants to see him just straight up go like gets shot out of a cannon, but
Yeah.
it won't surprise me if we see some smaller steps to getting to that point. I mean, Dana made him take a second contender series fight.
That's true. That's true. That's a good point.
I think there is something in their mind, in Dana's mind and the boys' mind, and I wish it wasn't this way. They look at that 4-0 record and say he's not ready, or they look at it like he needs more experience.
Yeah.
Maybe he does. They're smarter than I am. I'll let them make the decisions. But based off of what he already came in talent wise and based off what he's shown in these few fights, I don't see how he's not at least game for a top 10 matchup already.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he wins, but I'm saying he's game.
Yeah, I would say at worst you give him one more, and if he dominates again, let's go
That's probably
ahead and
what you do.
just
I mean, do
rip
you
the
really go
Band-Aid.
from? I mean, you don't go from Jamie Pickett to Acosta or
I'm trying to think of
whoever.
I'm trying to think of some middleweights outside of this top 15. Kelvin's number 15.
What
It's
if he
hard to think
fought
of
Mark? What if
people.
he fought Marc-Andre Barriol?
Yeah, that is a middleweight. He's coming off a big win. Same timetable. He beat Julian on this
Veteran
card.
guy with a lot of experience as well.
Yeah, or just something like that. A step up. I think that's a step up from Jamie as well. You beat someone like that on
Or
that
Dom.
level.
Can I get a little nuts real quick?
Please do, because I need to get more people in my brain in this division.
RoboCop.
Holy shit. Yeah. Ooh, wow. That's pretty
Gregory
sick.
Rodriguez. Tell me
Gregory
that's not a sick ass
Rodriguez.
fight.
That and if
Chidi
you
and
want,
Jokwani.
oh yeah, there you go. Now we're flowing with some of these guys on the outside looking in at middleweight.
I don't love that matchup for Chidi at all because I think that's where Chidi would be most vulnerable is against a guy that's got that great wrestling. But give me Gregory Rodriguez 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. Thank
And
you
if
very
anybody's
much.
going to be scary for Bo on the feet, I mean, RoboCop hits like a truck. And if
Yeah.
he can even withstand a punch, that's going to say a lot. But then if he can just completely nullify that and get RoboCop down and finish him, I like that. I like where your head's at
Did we
there.
do something? Did I just do something? I think I just did something.
I think our matchmaking on this episode has been one of our best in a long time. I'll say
Yeah,
that.
there we go. We're just giving ourselves pats on the back left and right, and I love it. We'll move on to the prelim. So, Dominic, your prelim results. Prelim headliner Cody Garbrandt gets the unanimous decision win over Trevin Jones. Dricus Duplessis gets a TKO due to corner stoppage. They threw in the towel with 1 second left in round 2. He gets the win over Derek Brunson, and my fight to not go to round 3 bet cashed because of it. So thank you very much to his corner. No thanks to you, Herb Dean. You asshole. No,
Yeah,
I'm
that
just
got a
kidding,
little
man.
rough to watch.
After all the times we've defended him on this show, and he did that
Yeah.
to me. Tried to. Anyways.
Yeah.
Amanda Ribas gets her first win at women's flyweight with a unanimous decision win over Viviane Araújo. And Marc-Andre Barriol, who we just talked about, got a second round TKO over the Cuban Missile Crisis, Julian Marquez.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the second biggest L he has taken in his career behind the one he took with Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, that was such a legendary moment that
That
he
was
just walks
mean.
out on.
That was so mean to me. What am I doing here? I'm just setting myself up to get my ass fucking kicked by all these people at some point. Anyways, Dominic, there's 4 fights right there. Your prelim card that was on ESPN News, ESPN the Network, or no, ESPN News and ESPN Plus, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you just start kind of a big takeaway you had across these 4 fights. You don't have to go in order, but just, what's something that stuck out to you, either good or bad, on these 4 fights?
Oh man, what is it? They were all so different. Like
Do
the
you want me to go
takeaway.
first if you want some time to
Well,
think?
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna go with Drickus, and it's not even
Okay.
the win necessarily. This guy's gonna be in the top 5, and he is so vulnerable. He is so vulnerable, man.
Dominic,
Like,
Dominic, I've never seen a guy. This guy is top 5 in a UFC division in the world.
yeah, yeah,
In every fight, from round 1 to round 3, he looks like if I were fighting in the octagon for a minute. Like, I mean, this
it's
guy, he
crazy.
looks. I've never seen a guy look more gassed, look
Yeah,
more out of like not in the fight anymore, and he just keeps winning. He
and,
just keeps winning.
it's literally Brad Tavares, great win. Darren Till, great win. Derek Brunson, great win. Like, and it's progressively better competition each fight, progressively a harder stylistic matchup each fight, and
And
he's winning.
dare I say, like each fight, he's progressively looked more and more
Tired.
vulnerable. Yeah.
Like the fight with Brad Tavares went 15 minutes, back and forth war, and he never looked as tired as he did in the first round of the fight with Derek Brunson. And maybe it's because Derek was wrestling him and stuff. So, credit there. But wow, I think that's the biggest thing for me is that he has managed to get into the top 5 of 185 with great wins, but being so vulnerable compared to everybody else in the division.
Let me
It's a
ask you a question
really
about that.
interesting thing.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about that. Just knee jerk reaction. I'm going to give you 2 paths here. Choose your own adventure. All right.
Okay.
What do you think is more likely in terms of what's next for Dricus du Plessis? Do
Okay.
you think it's more likely that gets exposed, those factors, against one of the very top of the division in like his next fight? That looking gassed right away, starts getting a little wild, leaving some openings, whatever, that gets exposed? Or do you think it's just enough of a credit to this guy's heart, this guy's resolve, this guy's IQ, that he's able to withstand any sort of punishment coming his way and still find a way to get the win each time out? Which one's more likely to you that he could have a similar performance that he's had his last 3 fights and get a win over Vittori, over a who's Vittori's fighting,
The leads a
Delidze,
Cannonier,
Paulo
Whitaker.
Costa, a Whitaker, a Cannonier,
Yeah.
or that one of those guys at the top just exposes this once and for all?
No, I think the latter for sure. Like, if he fights this style against Marvin and Whitaker, Izzy, because Izzy's number 1, right? He's not the
Mhm.
champ technically. Even maybe Jared Cannonier, he's losing, I think. But what the fuck do I know? I mean, maybe he's just got that. I mean, there's no maybe. He's got
He's
that
got that
dog
dog.
in him.
Mhm.
That's for sure. But
You know
like,
what fight's going to happen next, right? Like, it's very clear he's going to fight Paulo Costa next. I mean, there is no doubt in my
you think
mind.
so?
Those two just seem built to fight one another?
That could be fun.
I mean,
That
talk
could be
about
fun.
look at how Paulo not just have a very similar fight to what we're talking about with Luke Rockhold?
I mean, the weirdest fight in UFC history, but yeah, similar for sure.
And Dricus du Plessis might have the second, third, and fourth weirdest fights in UFC history. Like,
yeah, yeah. That's a.
I
I like
that's
that fight.
talk about some weird. I mean, it's gonna be great, but talk about just, and it's gonna be great, Dom, but it's probably gonna be sloppy as shit. And one of those guys probably ain't making it to the final bell. Like, I don't know.
Man.
I don't know what to think of Dricus in terms of being, because he's officially like a contender. I mean, he's there.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
beat Derek Brunson, who was one fight away from a title fight. You're there.
Yeah.
And
Oh
Yet
man.
I said, and I think I do tend to kind of believe, I have to think, come into his next fight with some pessimism. Now, I did that here. I sort of favored Brunson to get the win here. I favored Darren Till to maybe get the win against Trickus. And he's favored in these fights, and then he goes out there and wins. But he somehow I feel like this is going to end badly, like this way that he fights, just like a bull
Yeah.
in a china shop, and just with like
I feel like you can
where
only do
where
that for so long.
where his technique seems to go out the window at the midway point of round 1 or in the beginning of
Yeah.
round 2. And I think what's been lucky for him, the guys he's fighting kind of do the same thing.
They
Derek
can't keep up with
Brunson,
his like
yeah,
pace.
Derek Brunson looked. I mean, they were having a wild fight here, and
Yeah, it was crazy.
I hate to see Derek Brunson go down the way he did. My bet aside, whatever, but you never like to see a guy who's already been finished a few times via strikes have that happen to him again. But one of the underrated parts about Brunson's game, I talk about his wrestling all the time because that's something that stands out against the pack here at the top of middleweight. But his power is very
Oh
underrated.
no, he's built like an ox. He's super
Yeah.
strong. Yeah.
And, that showed here. They were throwing bombs back and forth. But like as tired as, lost or not as lost, as tired as I guess just out of it, Drickus looked.
Mm-hmm.
Brunson looked even more
Yeah.
so at both
Yeah.
of those. And you
Yeah.
look at the last fight, Darren Till, same way. Brad Tavares, the fight before that, battered, but same thing, really. Like it just,
Yeah, dude.
I just don't. If he fights like a Robert Whitaker, which I don't think they'll have him do as his next fight, but
I
if
don't
he
think that
did,
goes well at
you gotta
all.
think that doesn't happen with Bobby Nux, right?
I don't think it happens with any of these guys
I
ahead
don't
of
think it
him.
happens. You look at how Vittori fought guys like Paulo Costa and Jack Hermanson.
Yeah.
No chance that
And you're
Marvin
fighting
Vittori
guys that
falls
know
into
how to
that.
manage their gas tank, that don't put themselves in danger
Mhm.
very much. If Drickus can somehow find a way to like keep the aggressive like finishing prowess, but just
Reel it in a little bit.
reel it in,
Hone it in.
preserve some energy. The defense is,
But it was
not
crazy, Dom, in
great.
this
Like,
fight because I felt like he was starting to get tired, at least in terms of how he looked. Who knows how tired he really was. He got the win.
yeah,
But he started to look tired before really these two guys were letting loose in there. Like it was kind of
yeah.
great because I think even Rogan said that during the broadcast.
And you know what? I mean, shit, it probably wouldn't matter. The guy's been to like, I think 2 decisions in 21 fights, maybe just 1 decision with Brad. But I mean, main event next fight night for
I mean, I
Drickus.
think that's what you need to see, right?
Yeah,
That's what you need to see because obviously I have a hard time seeing this guy be able to make it through 5 rounds, win or lose, but I'd give
if
him a
you're gonna
chance to
take the
prove.
next step,
I mean, he has a chance to prove me wrong because he's already been doing it. Like,
him and Costa is interesting. But if he gets
put
put
that
with
as a
like
5 round.
anybody else, it's
I mean, Costa, I don't know what's going on with Costa. Like, shit's kind of weird over there.
that's true
Like,
too. It's the secret
so
juice.
yeah. So, I mean, I would love to see that as a 5 round main event. I think it makes sense. Both guys need to kind of prove that they can do it still at that level. Sign me
Yeah.
up. But it's just going to be
Yeah.
weird as shit, Dom.
Yeah, if Paulo's not available, I mean, he's fighting. I mean, Marvin's booked. He's if it's not Paulo, it's probably Jared
Yeah.
next. So
I don't think that goes very well for him either, to be
I
honest
don't.
with you.
Yeah, I don't know if he can somehow find that perfect like middle
Yeah.
ground and reel
Oh, yeah.
that in. We're talking something dangerous here with him, but we got to see it first. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good point. I'll take my takeaway for Cody Garbrandt here.
Mm-hmm.
Probably one of the bigger duds in terms of a fight on the card, which I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear this fight even going to a decision. Cody Garbrandt does get a win, which was obviously crucial for him if he wanted to continue fighting in the UFC. But I'm sort of on the fence, and I hate to be that way. I like to come in here and kind of know how I'm leaning, try to really get those thoughts together. So I'm not sitting here, sitting on the fence on everything, right? And yet I find myself still undecided on how I feel about this Cody Garbrandt performance, Dom, because if you take the first 2 rounds of this fight, obviously not a very exciting fight, but I thought Cody was doing the right thing, and he was showing respect to the power of Trevin Jones, but was being super defensively sound, using good head movement, and was overall getting the better of the striking. He didn't find himself in a firefight, but he was winning on points. And, you need to be able to do all of that. If you get in a firefight, you need to be able to land with the power to put away an opponent. But if you get in a fight like this, you got to be able to kind of pick your shots, be the more impactful with your shots as much as possible, especially in a fight where there's not many shots being landed. But
Wrestled a
then
little.
round 3, yep, very true. Great takedowns, actually. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
And then round 3 happens, and the fight ends with Cody on his back, getting some ground and pound landed on him by Trevin Jones, and yeah, Cody gets the win. But this was against Trevin Jones at the end of the day, who I'm not going to say is a bad fighter, but I believe he's like 2-3 or 2-4 in the UFC now.
Mm-hmm.
So for Cody Garbrandt, former champion, guy who's been fighting nothing but real contenders up until this fight, to come in here and have somewhat of a close fight with Trevin Jones, it's a win is a win, and I'm glad to see him get it, and he can, hopefully maybe that can give him some confidence, and he can try to carry this over to the next one. That kind of style of using good head movement, good footwork, even wrestling, mixing that in there, because those takedowns were fucking sick.
They were sick.
So I guess that's the positives. The negatives are just I still don't have an answer if Cody Garbrandt's ever really going to be Cody Garbrandt again. I just kind of, is this really the kind of guys that he's going to be struggling to win, or have those kind of fights with where he wins but not decisively?
Yeah, it was weird, man. Like, he looked so good and clean, yet I'm left at the end of the fight wishing or thinking just
And then once Trevin Jones did land clean, it hurt Cody.
Hurt him. It hurt him. Yeah.
And I will give him credit for being able to weather that and, still find some paths of success to avoid getting hit with a follow-up. But, I don't walk away feeling crazy optimistic. I just don't. And, I'm always going to root for the guy. We're Ohio through and through.
Mm-hmm.
But if the third round looked more like the first 2, obviously it's not an exciting fight, but I'd be feeling a little bit more positive on here. And instead, it raised more questions than it gave us answers.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I almost felt like, and I saw some people saying kind of the same sentiment, he was almost just fighting to avoid the knockout. Like, the skill discrepancy, I thought, was clear. Cody was the better fighter. And I think with those skills, he could have really pushed a better pace, overall leading to a better fight, potentially getting a finish. You never know. But he almost just was content with, it was clean. There weren't too many scary moments outside of the late in the third round. But I don't know if that fight style can get him back to where he wants to be, because I know he has the aspirations to get back into contention. And I don't know, maybe he just wanted to get this fight under his belt, get back, first fight with the new camp, maybe. But what you said, I think, is perfect. You were left with more questions than takeaways. I think that's a good way to describe this fight for sure.
Sure. So Dominic, do you want to take any of the final 2 fights to give a takeaway to?
Quick shout out to, I'm going to call him Mab, M-A-B. He got the good finish, Marc Andre over Julian Marquez. Cuban Missile Crisis is kill or be killed, man. And it's just tough to see him go out again on back-to-back, I think, knockout losses now. But that's a good win for Marc Andre. He's not known to get many big finishes. He's had his fair share of just dull outings. So good win for him. But Amanda Ribas, my girl, the happiest fighter in all of mixed martial arts, is in the win column. And it's at flyweight at 125 pounds. So add another wrench to this insane division last night. She looked good. She looked really good. A win over Viviane Araujo says a lot to me. I said that on Friday. I'll say it again now. Amanda is a great grappler, great jiu-jitsu. We already knew that. Looking good on the feet, though. Looks a little bit more polished. I think still her hands are a little low at times, but overall, she showed some power. She knocked down Viviani, had a knockdown. So it was just a really good performance for her. She had a really close fight with Caitlin Chukagian. She called to fight someone up at 125, and then if not, I think she even said the name Carla Esparza. I may have to go rewatch it again, but it shows she's open to 115 again. But regardless, come Tuesday, she will now be ranked in 2 weight classes as well. So I've always been a fan of her. I think she still has very good potential. It's just a matter of what weight class are you going to commit to more. But I thought it was a good performance for sure.
Yeah, I thought her ability in the striking is showing
Big improvements
through and through. She's showing those improvements are showing through big time. I mean, this is a far cry from what we saw against her or when she fought Marina Rodriguez,
Oh, yeah.
And the Caitlin Chukagian fight was that step in the right direction, Dom. But Viviani is, I think, a much more dangerous fighter when the fight's standing. Chukagian's got the awkward length, and that's a tough matchup in of itself. But here to knock down a powerful striker in Ira Ujal and get the better of a lot of those exchanges and show some of your own power in doing so, I think she deserves some credit for that because we know how good her jiu-jitsu is. And if she's going to become this well-rounded, she is. I'm not quite ready to put her up with some of the other girls I talked about. She is. I think she's more like the Macy Barber right now.
For now, yeah.
I think they're kind of on the bubble of me really believing in them in this division. Like I think another big win for either one of them, maybe against each other. I don't know, but another big win for either one of them. And all of a sudden I'm believing in them as like in the crop of women's flyweights that I think could be champions.
Do you have a preference on what weight class you'd like to see her commit to more or at least fight next at? Or do you're kind of like, all right.
Well, Dom, I like, this is truthfully, if she goes back down to 115, I don't know how much she loses in her like power and her striking capability. So in 2 performances in flyweight, I thought she's looked pretty good. So I don't really see a reason for her to go back down. I mean, not that she looked bad weight, but I don't know what she walks around at weight wise, but she obviously got finished at strawweight Marina Rodriguez, but she's 8 cleaner shots from she was eating clean shots from Viviani last night, who was a more powerful puncher than Marina Rodriguez. So I kind of like the way she fills in at 125 and how she's looked. So for all I know, she'd go back down and those improvements would just show no matter what weight class she's in, or we might find out that the 115 is just too much for her to really make. I mean, she's not like a big 115er, but you get my point.
Yeah, for sure. I like that.
Yeah, so now for the early prelims real quick. Ian Gary, TKO over Song Kinan. Cameron Simon getting a majority decision over Mana Martinez. Tabitha Ricci with the submission over Jessica Penne. Farid Basharat, unanimous decision win over Damon Blackshear. And Loic, I always forget how to say it, the former 2-time runner-up in the PFL, Radzhabov, gets the unanimous decision win over Esteban Ribovic, which I think was the first loss of Esteban's professional MMA career. So, Dominic, I'll let you start first. Big takeaways from the early prelims here.
It's crazy. This is literally a card we can go 14 for 14 with takeaways. That's how special it was. But from the early prelims, a great batch of fights, a great batch of young talent. But I'm gonna go Tabitha Ricci first. We talked about this a little bit last night. We had a discussion at the end of the year, beginning of this year, on prospects that we thought were going to take that next step in 2023. Noah said last night, I wish I would have thought about Ricci during that discussion. And now, and I remember saying to you last night, you know what? Now, with a win over Panay and the way in which she did it, I'm ready to put her into that group of young prospects here because she's 3-1. She's won 3 fights in a row. The only loss, Manon Fiore. And it went to the distance. So
wait,
she comes in.
I thought she got finished in that fight. Am I wrong?
Maybe she did. You might have to fact.
It doesn't matter, but that's her only loss,
right? And it's against the number 1 ranked flyweight or number 2, whatever she is now. And by the way, that's a flyweight fight. She's at strawweight doing this, so that's
second round TKO loss. But at flyweight.
So yeah, her debut, she came in, I'm assuming in short notice to fight up a weight class against Manon. She's 3-0 at 115 pounds. Now she finishes, honestly, one of the women's MMA pioneers that's still hanging around, and Jessica Penne, 40 years old. I understand that, but she finished her. And before that, just dominated everywhere she wanted to. Look good on the feet. Her grappling and jiu-jitsu is really, really good for 115 pounds. Definitely deserves top 15 next. And she's really good. She's really young, but a lot of potential. I wasn't really big on it in the two, prior wins, but this one, she really showcased a lot of
Mhm.
ever improving skills. I think she could do really well at 115
I know
pounds.
Jessica Panay's like 40 now,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
mean, I still think that's a good win. Someone who's fought some of the best of women's
And
MMA.
she just
So
dominated the fight too.
yeah, no, yeah, no, she looked great. I will say something for Ian Gary here. I mean, it's Ian Gary Machado, I think, but everybody keeps
Ian
showing it as
Machado,
just
Gary. Machado
Machado
first.
Gary. Did they show it as Machado Gary? Because okay, actually, full disclosure, um, this is the one fight that I did not get to watch.
Well, they never on the graphics, it never said Machado
Mm,
Gary, but John Anik was saying it the whole time.
okay,
So
so Ian Machado Gary. So I'm actually gonna let you take that one, but I'm gonna use this time my time to bring it up, but it's
I'll
gonna
just
be
describe the
more you.
fight.
So I didn't watch the. This was I was out to eat with my family. I was watching the fights on my phone. Ian Gary fight comes on as we're paying, as we're getting ready to leave. I
Mhm.
get out to my car. Like I saw him get knocked down,
Yeah.
but then when I'm out in my car, like in my head, I'm thinking, oh no, Song Kana might be like
Yeah.
getting about to give him his first loss. Well, then I get to my car, I see that he won, and then I see text in the group chat saying that was a dominant performance. So in my head, I was like thinking he might be getting exposed a little bit because I was worried about that.
Yeah.
And then it turned out this might have
He
been his
won.
most complete performance to date.
Yeah.
So Dominic, kind of like what we talked about earlier with this is to a higher level degree who we talked about earlier. We talked about Shavkat, these prospects who look, you know, uh not I mean it's not it's apples and oranges a bit here this comparison, but Shavkat looked dominant, right? Islam, some of these guys they look dominant or they look really good or they have all this potential, they got all this hype, Patty Pimblett, throw whoever in there. And then we say when in order to take that next step, we kind of want to see them, get tested a little more, get put into a bit of a war, see how they look when they aren't the hammer, hitting the
Yep.
proverbial nail. Like
Yep.
with Ian Gary taking or getting hit with the hardest shot maybe of his career here and getting knocked down, based off of how the whole fight went, do you feel like you kind of got that answered now? This was a guy who, despite the hype, he had that debut where even though he was kind of losing that first round, I thought he gets the highlight reel knockout to end the first round. But then back to back kind of dull performances, but wins where I don't even know if he lost a round in either of those.
Yeah.
Was this kind of the win you needed to, sort of buy in a little bit again to Ian Gary as a, future player in this division?
Oh, I think so for sure. He took a shot that drops a lot of people, by the way, not just him. I mean, this was a really clean shot that Song landed, and he did the right things. He didn't get wobbled and then just start throwing for the fences, trying to be defensive, and then puts himself more vulnerable. No, he immediately went to grab Song. He clinched up. He held him against the fence so that he could recover heading into his corner at the end of that round, and he's young. So to have that knowledge and the ability to do that did say a lot. And then you come back out and you pitch a fucking shutout for 10 more minutes after that, almost getting finished. This was that win for Ian Gary. Absolutely. He battered Song Kinong with leg kicks. He dominated with his striking. He showed a vast arsenal of weaponry. All the hype that was surrounding him coming into the UFC showed itself to me now. Not necessarily in the first three. He finished Jordan Williams. That's cool, but you were losing that round. Let's not forget. This fight was literally 45 seconds or whatever when the knockdown happened. It was something like that, shy of being utterly flawless. And then he finishes it with a finish with 35 seconds left in the fight, 38 seconds. So this was the one for me that said, all right, he is everything that people were saying, and he's everything that he's saying he is. He's great on the mic, by the way, too. He just did it so well. well-spoken, sharp-dressed guy. The suit he had on afterward. Ooh, some guy talked shit to him in the parking lot. Don't know if you saw that video on Twitter. Some like random fan tried to confront him. I'm like, come on, this is.
Some of these
Anyways.
fans getting a little too they're getting a little too big for their britches. You had that guy, with the sign at the parade in Louisiana.
With Dustin. Yeah, I know, just stupid shit. But Ian Gary, I'm in now. I'm on it for sure.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I will watch this fight back. Actually, probably when we get done.
I am interested to hear your thoughts.
I didn't have a chance, but I've kind of got the gist from what I've heard.
Yeah.
But I do think I need to watch it back, especially when I've been one of those guys starting to doubt Ian Gary a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I am very happy to hear this, though, Dom, because truthfully, I was sort of dreading the idea of coming on here and talking about Ian Gary like I've talked about Paddy Pimblett.
Yeah.
And European fans may literally come find me and kill me. And I wasn't ready for that kind of backlash. So it is good to hear. I will just give one more shout out from the early prelims. I think the Basharat brothers are both incredible talent.
Holy shit.
And now talk about sweat, though. Farid Basharat looked great. And then he got nearly caught in a submission at the very end of the fight, right? That was that fight, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was literally the last 10 seconds of the fight. He was in a tight
for some reason, for a second,
trick.
The way you started like looking, like sometimes you give this look that's like, oh no, I'm not going to interrupt him, but he's.
Oh, when I look to the side.
So I was like, wait, was it the Simon Martinez fight that I'm thinking of all of a sudden?
You're good.
No, the Basharat got caught in a submission with like right at the end of the fight.
It was,
Did you? I mean, I know we have the bet slip coming up. Did you have Basharat on any parlays or anything?
I did. Yeah, the asshole was clinched for sure.
Yeah, same here. So even though it didn't even end up fucking mattering, because I'm pretty sure that's the parlay that died with Cody and Trevin Jones. But I did want to give him a shout out. I think both the Basharat brothers are going to be problems here come soon, but they both have kind of a thing in common. Dominic, they do kind of leave that chin a little open. Do I think part of that's like they're so fast, so quick twitch that they have that good twitch where like, am I saying that right? They have that twitch where like they're very quick to get out of range, but they don't leave their hands up. They kind of leave the head out a little bit. Makes me a little nervous, but I think in terms of talent, both these guys are fantastic. And Damon Blackshear, not a bad fighter, by the way. He was a former champion. Oh no, he was like a champion. I don't know if it was Cage Warriors or what it was, but definitely a guy who
Cage Fury.
Cage Fury, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think he had some. I remember he was a guy that was like tweeting out, like really trying to get out of his contract stuff with Cage Fury or something like that. So he's definitely good. So this was a good win for him. But yeah, not a fight that probably a ton of people had much to say about, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Basharat. Dominic, anybody else you want to shout out?
Well, I'm just glad you brought up Damon on the other side of that fight, because I just want to pair this real quick with the Cameron Simon and Mana Martinez fight. Look at these four guys and how good all four of them are, especially the winners.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in bantamweight. It's the best division in the UFC. It's the best division in mixed martial arts. Cameron Simon is 8-0. He's 22. He's 22 years old, man. And you're beating Mana Martinez in your second UFC fight. Now, clean it up a little, Cameron. We had some eye pokes, 2 nut shots. He's lost points in both of his first 2 UFC fights. So, but he's young. So it's
he still? Yeah, is it young? Is he still?
What I mean?
I wonder. I'd have to ask someone who's probably done it before. But I wonder if that's a lot of jitters,
man, and just they're hitting the wrong
timing,
spots,
just a little behind, But no, he definitely looks good, and he just like Dricus represent Africa as well. So
both from South Africa, trained together. So I just wanted to pair those because bantamweight, the fact that 4 guys as good as this, as well rounded as this, these were 2 high level fights, man. On the early prelims, in the way deep back, like in the 60s and 70s of the bantamweight division, because I think they said there's like 80 bantamweights on the roster. If that don't tell you how deep and good this division is, I don't know what does. So
any of those guys want to drop down 10 pounds? I mean, come on, man.
Add some fun.
We love our flyweights. We want to get some of that top talent down there too. But Dominic, with that, I think we're going to move on to the below average bet slip. And I was back for the first time. We come out with a large positive result here, and yet I can't really take any of the, I mean, just barely can take any of the claim to that number. Dominic, despite a tough start to 2023,
Whew.
goes undefeated.
Oh
He's
man.
him, as
Yeah.
they would say. So he goes 5-0.
Hmm.
I barely came out positive, like around a quarter of a unit positive, so I'll take it. It
Okay.
actually is not quite representative of my betting weekend for all the combat sports because I lied the live bet at plus 650 on
Yeah.
Alexa Grasso. And then I actually had my boxing bet of the weekend, Brandon Figueroa by decision plus 140. So I ended up having a big profit, the biggest profit I've had since I started betting on combat sports again 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
But it just didn't quite show on the bet slip. But, Dominic was able to carry us to a big number, and that's exactly what we need, Dom. So, all I'll say for my side of things on the bet slip, I really like the slate I had. I have tried to learn from. I always back to this example when Luque fought Bilal Muhammad the second time. When Luque lost that fight, I had a unit on Luque on a parlay. I had a single on him. I may have even had like a certain prop with him, like on another parlay, and all of those missed. And then I had like a terrible betting day because of that.
Yeah.
So I've tried to learn my lesson from that and not put too many units at risk that require a similar result.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm against putting multiple units on the same fight.
Hmm.
It's just, you know, like I had a parlay with Shavkat money line. Well, that one ended up hitting. That whole parlay went 4 for 4. But then I had a single where I had that fight, Neil Rachmanov under 2.5. Well, that one didn't hit,
Yeah.
but that's okay. Like I didn't put too much. Now, if Geoff Neal had gotten a finish or if it had been a Geoff Neal decision, that would have fucking blown ass. But I just
Right.
like I still had it different enough to where like both things could hit or one thing could hit. Unfortunately, the Cody Garbrandt, Trevin Jones unders were kind of the only thing that really held me back here. I had the under 1.5 plus 100 as a single, and then on the parlay that did not hit, three legs plus 107. I wouldn't have hit it either way because Jones Gone did not go over 1.5 rounds, but
Hmm.
I had under 2.5 rounds on that one. So that's the really only thing on here that I need to clean up moving forward. But I don't like. I'll take that Jalen Turner number any day of the week plus 300 by finish when a guy's finished 5 straight fights and had the momentum he had, even though I didn't favor him to win and he didn't win. But you got to take that chance. Everything else, some of it didn't hit, some of it did, but I'd do it all again probably because the numbers don't lie, Dom.
Yeah, I mean, as Noah said, I had a big week and I needed it so bad. I was on a skid. I was missing Noah badly, so I'm glad he was able to still come out in the green. And that's what we want. We want both of us to be in the green, no matter the unit sizes. So with your quarter positive, I went
I'll let you
five.
know the exact number, but I
Yeah, you
don't
can
know it
send me that for
exactly.
the graphic. But you guys will see the total numbers. But for me, 5-0 plus 5.35 units. It was just great, like across the board, and I needed it so bad. We hit some of the violence plays finally. I've been struggling on those, and the one I wanted to shout out the most was actually the one that just came the latest. Because all the other ones, like the parlays and some of the like Shavkat by finish and stuff, it was more research based. I took more time into it. But on fight day morning, Jones Gone inside the distance plus 100, and I'm like, there was just something that like reached out and grabbed me at those odds at that play. I just had this weird feeling that regardless of the
Mm.
winner, I don't see this going 25 minutes. Little did I know it wouldn't even take 3 full minutes, but I just really loved the value there, especially if you can get plus 100 on a 5 round fight to not go the distance. That's almost worth sprinkling on every time you get, especially when you have it at heavyweight with high
Mhm.
level guys
Yeah,
like this
that's
that do
great.
finish fights. I loved that there. So that was just the really icing on the cake to finish that card off. So it was a huge week for us. We're back in the positive for sure. Again, you guys will see the full numbers and the full plays on the screen, but we needed it. Let's keep that momentum going because the train ain't stopping. We've got fights every freaking
Mhm.
weekend for like 2 more straight months. Let's ride.
Everybody get ready. to put together your heavy favorite Bellator parlays this
Yes,
weekend. Everybody
sir.
loves
Yes, sir.
those. So, yeah, very excited for it. A lot of cards. That means a lot of opportunities to make some money.
Mhm.
And with that, Dominic, we're going to end the show with the only segment we know how. It's a little segment we like to call closing statements. It's the point of the show where me and Dominic talk about anything and everything, MMA related or not. So, Dominic, do you have any closing statements to send us off into a great, great week?
Honestly, this has been a long one. We talked about a lot. I don't know if I have anything. It was just great to have us all together
Mm-hmm.
again to watch a card. Noah back to visit family and stuff. So that was cool. It's always special when we're all together to watch a card. So it's just camaraderie with the fellas. I'm going to leave it at that.
I ain't even got anything to add on top of it, man. It's been a long one, but I think that it speaks for itself. I think this is one of our finer works here, Dom.
Mhm.
Our creme de la creme, as some would say. So my name's Noah Baker. That's Dominic Salee. We are but just two of the below average Joes, and we will see you guys on Friday.